On today's episode of Let's Talk FGO, I'm leaving the woo in. But also, 31 million downloads. Can you believe it? And we're going to wrap up our thoughts on Lilim Harlot, even though there's like 6 days left in that event. I am one of your hosts, Omega. With me, as always, Lucky, and we gotta cook.
Oh, I hope everyone's enjoying Fate Grand Order, a.k.a. A Prelude to Puppetry. And while we here at Studio Omega like to bring you the latest and FGO-related news and memes, we will be talking about current and future events for both the JP and EM versions of the game, so anyone not wanting spoilers should remember to applaud for all the actors.
Yeah, do always remember to applaud. Yeah, this episode... So remember how last episode was super long because there was a boatload of news and there were a lot of mailbag questions, and then also I was like, I don't know how much Rain we're going to talk about, and we talked about Rain for like an hour.
Yeah.
This episode's not going to be like that because there's not as much news, though I do believe we still have a decent number of mailbags later and can indeed talk about Rain for an hour.
Yeah!
So we'll see what's happening, but it's going to be a fun one. I would also like to say, for the record, if anybody asks, I've never actually watched Breaking Bad. I've always heard it talked about as like really good, but I never had the time to sit down and watch it. There's a few other shows that I have watched a few about, but I've talked about this before. I'm not in my TV facing mood right now. I still haven't caught up on Devil May Cry. I should watch it. Some people in our Discord seemed interested in what was going on, so I need to give it a crack. A shick. But I was Lucky's intro, so we'll move right on into the business. First, this episode is brought to you by our lovely patrons. More on that later. But thanks everybody for watching and listening. I will now check in with everybody's favorite Kohai Mash very rapidly.
Senpai, 起きてください.
Because this will become Wake the Fuck Up Senpai Ring Singer Pro Tips. So I've just realized I've had my One Roll Engine, my Rain PDF open.
Mine's open as well right now, and I still have multiple Google Docs open.
Yeah, I decided to close it up because I'm gonna be tabbing around somewhere later, and I'm gonna get confused. I'm like, no, don't need that. Anyway, the pro tip this week, very simple. We don't know exactly when the Lotto event's gonna come up. I've not scheduled a pregame yet. I will explain this now, but I also put in my notes later. But I've been talking about it off and on a little, but I'm in one of those phases of my repetitive stress injuries, and my heckin' arms are tired, guys. Depending on what exactly I've been doing all day, elbows, wrists, fingers.
Fingies.
So we're trying to relax. I have a wrist brace, and it does help when it's just my wrist, but sometimes it is actually my little pointy scrolly fingers. This makes typing very hard. So we're trying to rest and relax and like be serious about it. I wasn't very serious about it last week, so we're actually trying to be cool on some, but I didn't want to type out a whole ass pregame just yet when I'm not sure I don't have to. So we're going to try and rest and recover the fingies. But when that Lotto event hits, it's going to be 2 weeks. It's not going to be 3 weeks. It's going to be 2 weeks. So you have a limited amount of time compared to current event structures to do it. But real quick, let's check in with Records on the Throne, Record Achievement Topic, and so on and so forth, because it's me this week. And I can tell you, in the intervening week, we're done with the event. It's finished. Got our Grail. Mission's down. Coup's complete. We're all good. Don't need to worry about any of that. So it was good to catch up. I will talk more about story thoughts later at the appropriate time in the show. But yeah, we're through that. That said, we will shift to not other ones evils, but damn close. I scrunched enough Saint Courts for 2 more 11s on Draco. Both were big whiffs. Big whiffers. One was a min roll.
Oof.
So I'm like, yeah, I don't really feel cut up about this. I don't want to spend money on this banner. This banner is just not... I'm not being tantalized. I'm not being spooked. I'm just not having a good time rolling. So we're going to pack it in, and we'll deal with it later. Obviously, if this story, saddens you in your soul, feel free to as some of you do, send your super chats, your channel memberships or whatever. But like I said, I'm for the moment content to sit back and try on Destiny Summon and see about that rerun, since I will not have to spend any quartz on the Tiamat banner specifically. But that means we can scooch along to, did you finish your master missions? Yes. Because they're real simple this week. We need you to perform 30 friend point summons, and then defeat 15 enemies with the Earth attribute, defeat 15 enemies each with the humanoid and demonic traits, then get 2 skill gems or statues as drops, and 4 of any skill gems or statues as drops. So this is still do the event, but it's a different flavor of do the event. And if you've already done did the event, Doug Dimmadome, sorry, we want to talk about deep structures and references, man. I got a lot of stuff buried in there. Sorry, I had to fight myself to just not do the Doug Dimmadome monologue. I'm good. I'm good, Chet. But remember, you can always post Doug Dimmadome memes. I will always approve. Anyway, if you have like completed all of the event and don't even need to farm for currency, you can also get these things like anywhere, basically. But if you're not done farming all the event missions and whatever, or have some currency to farm, you can easily clock these in the event. It's easy peasy. Do I have this one start? I should start this just in case.
I'm saving the second one because I'm old.
That one is practically useful, yes. But we move on then to, I won't say swiftly because we're like 6 minutes in and all over the place, Skelograms. First, technically this is part of the Gouda Gouda Close Call rerun, but they didn't add anything else new besides a new rank up, so I've just put it as a note for the rank up, because they are still doing that thing where they'll like wait like 3 days until the new banner actually starts to roll out the rank ups. But Lance Ryoma got a rank up.
Hey, it's a good one.
Yes, so this is an NP rank up for him. So obviously, being an NP rank up means you increase the multiplier, but it also, because previously all it did was, it did an overcharge effect to increase, I think, NP strength first, and it gave him like 50% defense up for 1 turn, which is pretty cool. I like NPs that do that, but not very proactive, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So now they made it, they added the effect to give all enemies charge down.
Always useful.
Fuck you. Charge down. And also, he now has another buff which activates first, which gives him 20% NP gen for 1 turn, which makes this way more loopable. He was already pretty loopable. Now we're like really loopable. So with a charge down effect and the NP gain, and obviously the increased damage, makes him a very strong contender in Arts Lancers. So yeah, good for him. Unknown if there'll be any other like rank ups related to the Gouda Gouda. I think they aren't running any more 5-star banners, but we'll see. The big one, though... Sorry, my chair's being kind of feisty all of a sudden. Keep trying to roll back. Let's reset those wheelies. Ugh. The big one out of JP, having plenty of stuff for yous and thems. As mentioned, 31 million downloads campaign started the 9th, goes until the 30th of April, so big blocks of time. As usual, got your login bonuses for tens of things. Get all your stuff, your favorite things. They've also got limited time master missions for more stuff and things. I think these are specifically gold foes, is most of the source of the missions. But this comes with a permanent missions update as well. Oh, actually, also, it's not just gold foes for the limited master missions. It's also, they're doing that thing where they have you, you get a bonus if you complete all daily missions each day. So it's like a faux pas, some teapots, some gold foes, and then resets. This is also important because it is a consecutive login bonus, but it goes up to 10, and that's a full 10 spin, even. But the permanent master missions they added are also basically clear Section 1 and then clear the entirety of everything up to Ordeal Call 3, including EORs, Lores and Grails, loads of them. Loads of Lores and Grails. So basically, if you clear the Section 1 of a story chapter, you now permanently get a crystallized lore, and if you clear that chapter, you get an extra Grail. Which, considering we already got Grails for clearing chapters, is a lot of Grails.
Might be needing those Grails soon.
It's true. I do think the intent is to make sure everybody's got the stuff they need, because it should be next month we're going to start to see or maybe a couple months. Was it May they said Grand Servants? I think they said it would start in May. And presumably this will also, since it goes all the way to Ordeal Call 3, presumably this will be moved to include Ordeal Call 4 once it comes out, but obviously they're not going to call their shot ahead of time. There's extra inventory in Da Vinci's shop, and they've added a bunch of permanent CEs to the Rare Prism Exchange. So you can now have Secret Mission, Wings of Manuscript, Report Check, Chaldea Morning, and From NFF with Love are now all in the Rare Prism shop, and they are free after certain points. You don't even need the Rare Prism. Wings of a Manuscript and Chaldea Morning are free if you clear Fuyuki, period. You can unlock them without spending a Rare Prism, and they go back to the Mana Prism exchange. But the others are through various parts of the story. And also, without unlocking, we've just added a bunch of old event CEs to Da Vinci's shop, basically, permanently. So, Traces of Christmas, Heavenly Demon Princess, Frozen Warbear, Miss Sailor in White Uniform, heading towards Trifas, First Premonition, and Castle of the Sun, just all permanently in Da Vinci's shop for Mana Prisms. 1,000 a pop for everything except First Premonition, because I think that's a 4-star? Yes, that's a Seraph CE. And also, DaVinci's shop is adding a bunch of old command codes. So 3 stars are mana prisms, and 4 and 5 stars are rare prisms.
Okay.
But you can now get second copies, or first copies if you missed in the first round, but you can get second copies of 5 stars such as Mages of Flowers, Grateful of Owari, DaVinci-chan, Bride of the White Rose, and Good Wife Wise Fox.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, all of these are still single exchanges, but does allow you to get dupes. Sorry, I forgot that's what this was called. The Neko Mash one is called Nekoko Light. But yeah, so gradually like catching up your inventory so that you can access a lot of old stuff. And there's also what they're calling the other campaigns. So half AP Embers and every class variant's open all day. Servant and Craft Essences double suck. If you're doing Ember Gathering, Lady Avalon is a support NPC. Why is that? Well, it's because Lady A is the Banner Servant. Banner is Lady A and Summer Gareth. But also, probably the biggest like update, though also, you know, kind of one of the one that's going to be, you know, not really impactful to like currency or anything like that, but still very interesting is there's a new tab added in My Room Material. It's the Gallery tab, and this is a CG and movie gallery.
Excellent.
So you can now look back at any CGs or animated movies from any main story and main interlude chapters. That's cool.
That is cool.
I'm honestly kind of surprised it took them a while to re-add it, but again, the game is like 10 years old. It was not designed with certain amounts of gallery stuff in mind, but now, yeah, you can look at them separately, which is good. They also added another feature, which I didn't note, but when you're on the Ascension and the Servant status bar, there is now a button to go straight to the unlock quest for Servants with Locked Ascensions. So you've got like Senno DQ or Oberon or other characters who require you to clear a certain quest to free up their Ascensions. You just have a button you can push, and you go there. Yay.
Yay.
But yeah, that's 31 million downloads, trucking along. Obviously, you know, we'll be waiting until a similar time frame to get that over here, so probably won't get like the CG recollection early, though you never know. They surprise us sometimes. I suspect the Grail and Lore Permanent Master Mission update will probably be timed to a similar time frame, though, in English, just because I'm guessing it is, you know, designed to hit you before they launch OC4. And our last bit of news, we don't have any exact hard numbers so far, but just today, they did post the social media post for Karakuri Castle, Ilia's Karakuri Castle. The social media campaign is going to end on the 22nd. So I mentioned before that I'm risking that they're not going to start it like right away once Little Harlot ends, because that's still like not quite a week, but it's like 4 or 5 days until the social media ends. So I'm guessing they're probably not going to start it right away, but they are giving us a little bit of time. You've got about 11 days before that gets up there to get in on your 6 St. Quartzes. And just in general, in case you don't know, this is going to be a lotto event. And we'll add Kashin Kojin, I believe is a permanent assassin, because it's been 5 million years since we got one of those. Not even Lukushta's permanent, and she's 4-star. She's limited. But that is our news for today. This week at Let's Talk FGO.
All right, then. Let me pull this mic close to my face real quick. So with that, it is time for this week's Let's Talk FGO mailbag, the segment where we read what you have to say and comment accordingly. Let's get in one last refresh. And it's 7 lovely comments today, and we will get through them all. Beginning at the top, right meow. This first one comes from Forklift Certified Mini Nobu. That is a mob. I need to see that mob now. Can we have Forklift Nobus? Sounds amazing. But they say, hello, Lucky Omega. Question, what would you guys like to see in a FGO grand final event? I'm not talking about story event, just the last big non-story event in FGO. Honestly, I think my last big event would have to be, like, the last summer, you know?
That would probably be a big one.
Yeah, just like a big summer blast where we just, where you just celebrate, like, all the years that have came before it. Get off
that was my first thought, was like, how would we call back all callbacks? Because there's a few. Halloween, the constantly looking for the next year's Santa Claus.
Nah, like, I think a big summer event with, like taking place in a, like, it's like Servant Fez. Like, it's like, you know, it's a Servant Fez, but it's taking place in, like, not in, like, an island or a small nation, but, like a full-on, metropolis, and you can go visit like the stadiums, the amusement parks, and everything's just like just like a callback to a previous event. You can interact and talk with the servants, and you reminisce upon all those times. And at the the end of the event is everyone's going home, saying goodbye, but we'll see each other again next time. Yeah, that's what I want.
I'm nodding. You can't see me nodding, but I'm doing it. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things, but no, like I said, my definite my flavor would probably be like just try to finding some way to hit our best ofs, all of our runnings.
Yeah,
because we do have a lot of running sub themes and stuff. For sure, you would somehow have to actually work the Castle Castige thing in again. I need to see it one last time. Put the castle, put the pyramid on it, put a Magic Castle on top of it. Canonically, put Oniland on top of that.
Well, no. At this point, the fucking Sajet Himeji Pyramid Himeji Castle has to turn into a mech. It has to surround arms. It has to stand up. It has to fight something.
It's just the giant mecha Ellie is like stuck inside, so she just sticks her arms and legs out of a castle.
Yeah.
Also, reveal it to me like that one scene in Yakuza 2 where I think it's Osaka Castle splits open and there's a bigger, more golden Osaka Castle inside of it. And then Kiryu has to fight two tigers inside of it. Why? Man, I don't fucking know. Don't ask questions. Fight two tigers.
Anyway, let's move on. So, this next one comes from Monster Girl Aficionado, who says, Dear Lucky and Omega, no questions this week, just sending good vibes, wah 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 wah, and wishing you well. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you. Same to you. Moving swiftly on, we go on to Agent 418, who says, Hello, Botanist Lucky and Omega. In the mailbag today, I said, they call me the Botanist. This is a reference to me playing Schedule 1, where I like to just sit at the fucking location and grow weed, and then mix weed with other stuff, and then say, Hey, Loth, come take this stuff and divvy it out. It is one of the things I enjoy a lot. Can't wait till we can start making cocaine.
It'd also be funnier when we unlock the brick press.
But they say, have a good weekend, y'all. Thank you, my dude. Same to you. So, with that, we move on. This next one comes from the Tyrant King that's finally free of student loans. Congratulations. But they say, question, hey guys, with OC4 coming up soon in JP, any thoughts on who the servants might be? Also, thoughts on if the collab is just OC4 or not. Anyway, that's it for me. Sending good vibes your way, and hope you have a good evening. Yes, no, there are people wondering if we're gonna have our, collab be OC4, how they kind of collabed OC3 with Summer. Could be interesting, but from what I understand...
Sorry, I was gonna say, I feel like they just haven't announced a collab, so I think that means we're not doing a normal one this year, no matter what.
Well, like I said, we've been a little weird. We had a weird ass, we had a mini collab with getting Phantom Moon after Christmas last year. That was random as fuck. But a lot of people were thinking that we're gonna be getting the Strange Fate collab this year, or maybe even get that Fate prototype collab. From what I understand of Ordeal Call 4, we're going to be dealing with rulers, and it seems like we're going to be having something to do with Dante's Inferno. Like I said, I do believe that from the White Day event with Dante, I think I can't remember what it was exactly, but there was something said there, or something in the preview that, no wait, I think it was in the giant blob of text that appears. I think Dante's Inferno showed up in there. So
yes,
right now,
also they did say that Dante would be story locked to OC4.
That's the other thing. So with Dante being story locked to that, I'm assuming that Ordeal Call 4 is probably going to be a journey through hell in some way or form or fashion, and Dante is going to be our Virgil, for lack of a better term. On top of that, that probably means we're going to get a couple rulers and maybe something weird. This is the last Ordeal Call, so everyone is waiting on that last feminine looking servant. Like I said, I continue to call her Lilith because I have no other idea what she may be, and she still might be a good pick. We can only hope. But other than that, I expect that we'll probably get maybe a couple more rulers.
It should probably be at least, because we've got, technically we've gotten Dante ahead of time, but no, it's not the correct fate. Say thank you. Dante was a pretender though, so we've already technically gotten our weird one.
Yep.
So yeah, that probably means a banner at least should be a 5 and a 4. This could be both be rulers. They could not, because let's see, Ordeal Call 3 was like, I mean, it was weird because they did bundle the summer in there, but I would say the primary would be, you had the Welfares of the Hakunos, which were 4s and were Moon Cancers, but like the relevance banners was, there were a couple of secret summer Moon Cancers, and we packed the big BB Dubai in there, and a just straight up had Kazuto drop. So probably usually I think they've been two 5-star banners for the event itself.
What was it for Ordeal Call 1 and 2?
Order Call 1 was Bhima, the other guy, and then Durga Kali.
Yeah.
With Medusa being an early cameo who came later.
Yeah.
Ordeal Call 2 was Mary Alter, I think, on the front half, and then Super Dantes, Count of Monte Cristo on the back half.
Yeah, and
like I said, Ordeal Call 3 gets messy because it was like, I was going to say it was 2 events, but really it was like 4 events put together. Because it took them like 2 months to do it all.
We also had Cagliostro and Hassan of, what was it, Shining Star? I forgot his name already.
It was something Star, yeah. A couple of these.
I don't know if they might pull some weird ass character from Dante's Infernos, because there was just dudes down there marinating.
There are certainly plenty of historical people in Inferno, yes.
But no, when we talk about rulers, though, I always think about John right off the top, and John hasn't necessarily gotten a lot of screen time recently. I don't think we necessarily need a super John, but I don't know. Maybe a super Giles. That'd be funny.
That could be funny. I do think that Jean would be a good point to reference back, because she is the first ruler we met and was a centerpiece character in a story.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a good bow to tie back for an Ordeal Call. I don't know if we would do a new version of Jean, but they could probably get away with something. We have
I think it'd be a nice bookend for Ordeal Call 2.
Yeah, but regular Jean, they've always said that she could be a saber, and there's also the Lancer Jolter scene in Samurai.
I think I would like to see a saber John, maybe one that's still mid battle.
I mean, if nothing else, they could finally figure out a way to do, because that's her one noble phantasm that's never actually been represented in FGO is La Pucelle, even though it's a big deal in APOC.
Yep. Which
is supposed to be that she, when she draws her sword and offers up everything, she can, take out enemies. That's even her fucking move in Extella is her noble phantasm is a wave clear, but she dies. You have to use a command cell. That's always been joked about, but strictly speaking, it would that's not necessarily her saber NP. It's just one of those things where when she appeared in APOC, they said oh, what other classes could this servant be? And they're like, well, maybe in a regular Grail War she could be a saber. She does have a sword of St. Catherine.
Yeah, you got to remember, a lot of servants just have multiple NPs. It's just that the way that FGO is coded, you only can get one at a time.
Yeah, you can only have one in your super slot, and unless you have a second mechanic to pick one, but even that, you can only have one active at a time.
FGO 2, let us have multiple multiple phantasms. Just let us select them before we go into battle. That'd be rad.
That'd be cool to equip different NPs. That would be very fun, and would make more sense for where you're at with servants. Yeah, Achilles. Achilles was primo when the writing for Fate was the writer's gimmick was they get lots of noble phantasms. That was supposed to be the thing the class was about. So Achilles has 4 or 5. I think it's actually 5. And then his skills in APOC are turbo generic. They're the most generic year 1 ass skills for FGO terms. So I think the team did the smart thing and is just okay, we're going to make his playable skills just his NPs so that we can actually do some mechanics. But yeah, no, like I said, generally, previous to FGO's way of doing things, which on the one hand, I think kind of solidified the idea of alt character classes because it's one of the few Fate stories where literally the same person can show up in different classes. But at the same time, I feel the way it is people, I feel usually assume that's a weird thing. No. servants just can be different class containers at any given time, and lots of them can do that. When he showed up in Fuyuki, Caster Ku was supposed to be normal. That was just a thing you could do. Kukulin knows the runes. He should be able to qualify as a caster. He just would hate it because he would not have access to his most fun abilities. Same with the discussion that came up with, I think, with Rama, right? Where he really should be an archer because he has a ranged attack, but he forces himself to be Saber so that Sita could technically manifest, and his skills is basically no matter what class container he is, Rama is functionally a high-level Saber, Archer, and Lancer at all times. So stuff like that. Yes, Ark also brought up in our patron chat. It is canonical that Herc could be any class except any of the core classes except Caster. Berserker probably makes the most sense because he has gone crazy a couple of times, but thanks to his diverse 12 labors and stuff, he probably could normally qualify as Saber, Archer, Lancer, Rider, and even Assassin sometimes. Magecraft is, I think, literally the only thing Heracles does not do. So yeah, just an alternate John, we could do that as a Saber. That would be kind of funny because I feel like extra classes like Ruler are usually used for that sort of thing. But depending on how it goes, if the idea of these audio calls is us learning about these extra classes and how to use them, and being oh, we've been misusing them, that would be very appropriate, like I said, for Jean, our first ruler, to be okay, I'm not a ruler then. Fuck you. I'm still here. But like I said, we should expect probably 2 5-stars and at least 1 4. And as seen with Count Cagliostro, just because you're the big identified character doesn't mean that you're going to be the big 5. He's a 4-star pretender.
Sorry, I'm trying to think of who might actually. And there may be another Saint. I don't know.
Boy, howdy, we got a lot of those.
Yeah.
And it could still be we don't know if it's going to be the collab, but they could always turn it into the Strange Fate collab. You talk about Super Giles, right? Well, fucking if we had a Giles and John show up, that would be the perfect time to bring Prelati into FGO.
Yeah, we could do fucking...
Which could do secret Forder bullshit.
We could do Prototype, and who knows, maybe we can get some... honestly, we might be able to get some B6G in here, honestly.
I legitimately saw somebody post on Twitter. I think they're only thinking about it because we just got Willem Harlot here, but was they showed a picture of the the character we know is going to be Audio Call 4, and they're what if this is Beast 6G?
I don't think she's going to be B6G.
No, I've talked about this before with DRACO, for instance. The Beast of 666, which would be Beast 6G, has been described before in Prototype and other places.
Mm-hmm.
They should be much closer to the various classical renditions of Beasts of Revelation. I would even argue that strictly speaking, the thing that happened with DRACO is that despite the Mother Harlot's supposed to be writing the 7-headed Beast of Revelation, which I've mentioned before, is supposed to be part bear, part lion, part leopard, which is very, very funny that it looks like her Mother Harlot mode has fox ears. They probably should be cat ears, but maybe she's just flexing.
She's flexing on Tomo. I don't care what anyone says.
But, there's supposed to be, another beast, which is, the red beast, the dragon, which represents Satan, great Satan. And then there's, the beast of the land, the false prophet, who is not as monstrously suggested. But the description that Arthur has given for what he's looking for, makes it sound much more like a classical, 7-headed animal thing. So, I don't know. Given how anime works, the character could be, instead of being Lilith, it could be Lucifer, it could be big Satan. That would be very funny. Would not be super original on its own. I don't think Monica is a beast. I think she is technically more like a candidate because, and even if then, it's kind of weird because, strictly speaking, I think Monica is a beast contractor.
Yes.
She's summoned the beast. Does that make her a candidate herself or just a vector? I don't know. Because this is technically a Lilim Harlot tangent, but we can get into it. But like, I think actually the way FGO goes with like being a beast contractor is one of those things that's like Nasu never said out loud, but is super open. Because there's supposed to be Monika's relationship with 666. But also I would like to remind everybody that Primate Murder is supposed to be the pet of Altrude Brunstead, Arquid's something sister. So like again, this has been suggested that this sort of thing can happen. She probably does fuse with it, but that's because this is fate, and like I feel like there's only so many ways when Nasu writes a plot things can go, like at some point someone has to fuse with the goo monster.
It happens a lot. There's a lot of fusing with the evil monster.
Like that's, not in every route of fate, obviously, but like technically that's how Dark Sakura goes, is like Sakura decides to just fucking eat Angramanyu.
They threw Shinji into the blob.
Yeah. Which, that's still mostly Angramanyu in the driver's seat, but does allow him to actually get his, fucking weirdo one-eyed giant form. I think technically, yeah, if we, in Fate route, that doesn't actually happen. Angramanyu doesn't get personified. It's strictly a 2v2. It's Saber versus Gil and Shiro versus Kirie.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about an LB7. David throws himself into Ort.
It's true.
LB6, Balbon Shi falls into Fluffy.
Yeah. That's obviously not our final conflict, but it is part of that. Those two are supposed to be linked. In Heian-kyo, Doman tries to become the tree, and then also tries to eat Ibuki. Those don't work out exactly. Technically, Wodaime did already do that, where he already went inside and took over the big scary thing from the inside, because he put Atlas inside his world tree. That didn't work out as planned because of other bullshit, but yeah.
Nah, it's common. Things fall into other things and get et, and weird stuff happens because of it.
Yeah. But yeah, so we'll see. I think they said OC4 should still be late April. I think it was then that they said, so we'll see soon enough.
We will see. So let us move it on it. So we move on. This next one comes from the 100-Hour Man, who says, "Dear Lucky and Omega, hope your week has been great so far. It's been okay. What they say. So, I was able to finish the event story last night, struggling to find time to play due to work hours. Overall, I like the story, but I'm fairly confused on one thing and hope y'all can help me with understanding it. I understand why we kept Draco around at the start of the event and why we formed a bond with her and kept her around during the end and after the event, but why didn't we order her to unalive herself in the middle of the event? I probably just missed something, but once we had a fairly sizable force of servants to protect us, and with how she was openly telling us once our contract was done she was going to eat us, it seems like it would have been the obvious thing to do at that point. Keep on being awesome. So you did miss something. If you had killed Draco in the middle of all that, you had been stuck in the proof world. You needed her help to get out.
Yeah, there was that. Like, there was an ongoing relationship. Also, honestly, genuinely, by the middle of the event, I think we'd already moved on. Like, once we... literally, the first fake singularity is Babylon, which is, a secret summer vacation. So, which is, like I said, super early. But as the master, you'd already caught on to the fact that, like, things are not what they seem here.
Yeah. Like, by the middle of the part, you're being like, nah, Tiamat, I'm gonna keep going with her. And Tiamat is, bawling and crying. And you're like, shit.
Yeah.
Like, I know this doesn't come up a lot, but you also got to think about this in the character style of the master. If we were to put, the fate alignment on them system on the master, they're lawful balanced. It's something that is said like at the very, very beginning of the game. This means that, like, if you want to consider this, that means you don't necessarily, how do I best want to put this?
The master is not fundamentally they are a good person, but I don't want to say they're not like a morally or ethically pure person, nor a morally or ethically corrupt person. As a character, you do things that are arguably both good and bad, but are for the sake of preserving the human order.
And you are accepting of someone's both good and you're someone who is accepting of both good and evil. Actually, I think that was a point that was actually brought up in Lilim Harlot.
Yeah.
That if you were to escape, it'd be like ignoring the evil that is happening right now. Or something. I can't remember the exact line because guess what? It's been weeks.
Somebody, well, I think you actually say it, but it's in a discussion, I think, with Tiamat, where you're like, I also feel like if I just ran away now, I would be looking away from the evil that's inherent in humanity.
Yes.
Which I think is a pretty big character note for the player character to say out loud. Because technically, like, yes, obviously they are fighting to preserve human order because it is bupkis for all of humanity to have been incinerated or to be translocated against their will. But also, like, reassembling human order and preserving human history does mean that technically we are reconstructing evils that have been done. But we did them, we can't undo them, you know, kind of a thing. Like, the whole point of human order is that, like, it's a structure by which we arrive at the point we're at now and will arrive at the future, which, strictly speaking, because the event does take a lot of tonal notes from, among other things, Extra, but I think the whole point that this ends on is that regardless of our bad factors, humanity's destiny is the stars, as it were, the starry sky, which is a thing that has been, like Merlin's alluded to it a couple times, even in FGO, but that's a very big undercurrent of the Extra games. So, like, that's why we have to rebuild human order, despite the fact that bad stuff happens in human order. Bad stuff happened in the past, will happen again in the future, is happening in the present. But we, like I said, it is our solemn duty as the Chaldea Security Organization to fix it. That's supposed to be our job, even though we didn't know what we were signing up for. The Master is lawful enough to be a stickler for, well, this is my job title. And then, like I said, the second is that it's just like we if we want to set things on their course once again, you know, we have to set it back up. So yeah, the Master is clearly recognized, I think, by the time we get to quote unquote the middle, that or even by the beginning, that like there's a lot of things going on here. And you get the opportunity to be teasing with Draco a couple of times that, like, in your way, that I think you can tell that, like, again, there's more going on in her mind than she puts out. It's very funny to me, just writing wise, but to say this point briefly, what should we call it? Sorry, I was fucking flashbanging by something. But no, what I was gonna say is, character note wise, I think that normal Nero and Draco are kind of like inversions. It's why the bit at the end with Third Ascension is so, it's a humorous, it's a light note, it's comedia, not tragedia, you know? Mm-hmm. Because like normally Nero wears everything on her sleeves to an absurd degree, right? Nero just lets everything out there, even when sometimes you'd be like, Nero, maybe you shouldn't have said that last bit out loud. Draco is much less upfront about what's actually, like, on her mind. And much more like, I am evil, I will eat you later. And you're just like, yeah, sure you will, shrimp. Let me turn my chair backwards and talk to you. What's really going on with you? But yeah, so like I said, I think even by the time you get to the middle, the Master is locked into the ride. Not just because the story says, well, even if you got rid of Draco somehow, you would still be stuck doing the spiral-proof world because you're not sure how to get out. But also, you haven't solved the mystery yet. And that is definitely, I think, a character beat that has come up with the Master before, of, like, their character is not written as the kind of character who, like, leaves the story half-assed, right?
Yep.
That has been a note in several events where someone will go, like, did you really figure out what's going on? Did you get it? And you're like, no, we gotta go through, we gotta see through. Also, by the way, Draco still has independent manifestations, which includes independent action, so I don't think you can use a command spell in that way.
I don't think it's necessarily innocent values. I think this is what the lawful balance mean. I think the Master is just accepting of things. He sees something and he sees, like, you know, villains and goes, yeah, that's a villain. They're doing villainous things. I should probably stop that. But doesn't think, oh my god, they're a villain. They're absolutely evil. I must destroy them. He doesn't
talking about like calling it morals and standards. Like, first of all, the Master is not innocent. They've been doing this bit since at least, like, Lost Belt, like, 2.
They have seen a lot of death and understand they have probably they've killed worlds.
Yeah, like, you have a lot in there. But yes, the Master is a character who is open-minded enough that they can be compatible with both heroes and anti-heroes.
Excuse me.
No, that's not what innocent means. Selfless is the word that is the antithesis of selfish. And I do think that the Master does have a self-sacrifice problem sometimes. That's another beat that we've been over before. Where people do occasionally have to be like, hey, you gotta sit down, man. You gotta take 5. You gotta take a break for yourself, okay?
And then you're just like, no.
Yeah. But yes, they are kind of like open-ended. Some of that obviously I think is meant to reflect the player having the ability to have choices and feel like they embody the character. But also I feel like in general that is just the nature of the writing team being like, because like again, talking about old school Fate stuff, how you get a servant is supposed to be like super personal. Like obviously there are catalysts, but barring the catalyzation, like the servant you get is supposed to be reflective of compatibility. Like the Grail doesn't just send you assholes you're not compatible with. So like I'm sure the Fate scenario writers had to think when they were writing FGO, they were like, okay, so we're writing a character intrinsically who has to be compatible with many different servants who are from a lot of different eras and opinions. And so that's kind of, I think, how we ended up writing a character who is, as we say, kind of lawful balance, kind of open-ended, where generally I think they'll do, quote unquote, the right thing. They'll do the lawful thing and assert order, but are still like open-ended.
But yes, so this basically means even though, you know, he was captured by DRACO and was being hanging around, he instead of being, you know, oh my god, I'm just going to murder this shrimp, which I feel is a bit of a harsh take. Like, I don't know. Are you the kind of person that could just see a problem and just say, hey, kill yourself with like no qualms or compunctions about it whatsoever? If you can, you might want to consider therapy.
Yeah, I mean, the story does try to hammer into us that, like, hey, this is still a beast. Like, she hasn't necessarily switched up her nature. We still got to watch out. But again, I think that's the Master's compatibility with different servants being like, okay, so I get that, like, beasts are a threat. You're not wrong about the evil of humanity. But also, there's something going on with this one. Something is happening here. And, like, yeah, like I said, I think, you know, our esteemed correspondent here, they did talk about having to find time, so I think they may have rushed a little in their reading, but like, no, I think it's clear on from early on that the Master is like, nope, hold on, wait a minute, something going on here. My protagonist's senses are tingling.
Blacklist OG also has a very good point that the Master has faced enough to know that the reasons are threats is because they have a deep love for humanity.
Yeah.
I think that is also probably important as well.
Well, I also want to say thematically, something that's really important is, I don't know how much the Master consciously remembers it, because again, this is one of those things that we never bring up. But in a dream, in a space between spaces, Foe did talk to us about how we defeated a beast without ever lifting our swords. So, like, the character and the story, so for sure the author and the audience, has broached the subject that to defeat a beast, you do not necessarily need to kill them or destroy them. We can have them kind of, like, unmake themselves depending on the circumstances.
I think the term we use is we must overcome.
Yeah.
Well, I might have said probably. I think he said it's a match, but still,
and
we were still there as the audience surrogate. You know. Oh, now Legendary's just being cheeky.
Well, you know, it's them. But yeah, it's like I said, no matter what, even if it wasn't directly to the player, it is still in a moment that means that, like I said, the audience is broached with that subject. You know, the edit button exists.
The edit button exists.
No, I think Arc 1 is phrased like that. It is about Mash's journey. Like, honestly, I think that's why Mash is less central of a character in Part 2, is because she has a whole ass character arc in Part 1.
Yeah. Also, Legendary, let me read you your message here and you'll see what I mean. It's like, oh, I thought he said that to Mash. You know, when reviving her, it's cheeky.
Yeah, you may not have meant it to be cheeky, but when you did separate your thoughts like that.
Yeah, well, that's why oof. Well, I think we have spent enough on this. There's many reasons why we did not just unalive a lolly mid-story. I hope we've explained it well enough. We shall move on. This next one comes from Joe. Just Joe. And they say, no questions, only vibe. Wah. Hope you have a good day.
Thank you so much. I the moment you paused after saying one vibe, I'm like, wait a minute, what's he gonna do? Also, sorry, I was struck with a sudden dread about the passage of time. You know, it said Joe, just Joe. I was gonna be like Gearless Joe, and then I'm like, wait, shit, wasn't there a second season of Megalobox? I
there was.
Never watched that second season.
I did not either.
The first season was really good. Megalobox, great show. No idea if they stuck it for the second one.
I'm gonna go on a limb and probably say they didn't.
I don't remember hearing about it as much, so it could just be as simple as, like, it didn't have as much gas. Nah, you know, it was depressing.
Yes, people terrified of small girls and less than ideal clothing. Nah, this ain't the forum to talk about that. I was thinking about bringing it up, but nah. So our last one comes from Soul of the Light Mode Discord, who says, "Dear Fisher Fellow Lucky and Fisher Wuddler Omega, no question this week, just bubbles and good vibes. Wah 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 wah." But they have in parentheses here, blah blah blah. Actually, Megan, did you get into Monster Hunter at all? Did you fight Mizutsune?
No, it's because I've been resting my hand. I have not checked out the update. I thought about it, but I was like, nah, I want to. Monster Hunter can require me to smash some buttons.
Well, that's because people on the fucking metro are weird.
That was an unrelated aside, by the way, people at home.
Yeah, sorry, I was talking to chat. Like I said, Lucky is someone who has played Azure, Lane, DK, fucking FGO on public and buses, and if someone gets fucking offended, I'm gonna be like, well, that's your problem. I'm not blasting my headphones in, I'm not putting it on projector screens, and I generally don't like sit in crowded areas, so if someone somehow sees it, well, they went out of their way to look at my fucking phone. And if someone says like, oh my god, you like little girls, I'm gonna be all like, why are you sexualizing this little girl? I am not. Like I said, there's a lot more wrong with other people than there are with me.
I mean, if people don't vibe with it, that's fine, but that's why you have 3 Ascensions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually know if I would start shit on the metro. Man, I think most people on the metro just want to fucking go home.
That's generally how I feel. But I do believe, that's it for mailbag.
Hey, the mailbagging. Well, let me drag that tab over too far. Let's close up my mailbag. So, this puts us back at free talk. And honestly, I think we can just dive right forward into kind of my final thoughts on Lilim Harlot and maybe bounce a few things off Lucky. As you know, last week I was not done. Somehow. Still not exactly sure how, but a couple of his last sections were pretty dense. But it was still kind of like the last, basically the third act twist with, Okeanos being goofed up and then you push through to the end. And all in all, very strong ending. We've talked about this before, but I'm very curious how because we mentioned this last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, but at some point when discussing Lilim Harlot, we discussed that the author they got for this, while he is a writer and producer in anime and video games and stuff, he hasn't really been on any Fate projects before. Mm-hmm. So I'm really curious, what the kind of writing process for this event was. Did they just pass him, but pass him, the story text for Arcade? Because obviously this event is very directly tied into what the narrative of Arcade ended up being. But also give him the Fate extra lore Bible and other stuff. I don't know, because this story pretty definitely weaves in a lot of concepts and ideas and beats from other places. I think I want to say that the extraverse side overall is probably the strongest.
Yeah.
But like I said, we weave in a lot of stuff from multiple places. But extra definitely, there's the moment of not just unpacking, specific character beats for Nero and Draco, but also Secret Garden.
Yep.
That's a big deal in the original Extra and CCC. In fact, I think that's, funnily enough, how I think the Sakura 5 are supposed to be defeated.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to enter their secret garden for each of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So you overcome kind of their inner world type stuff. So that's obviously that would follow through. Some of that's going to go over the head of some of the Western audience because CCC still hasn't been localized over here. But I feel like the Twilight Ladder itself is very, the exterior and the mechanism is very much coded after Last Encore. But some of the story beats in there are also very much just the, My Room rule in general, which I think was, obviously it got reused for FGO, but I think that was started by Extra.
Yes.
So, lots of those elements in there. And obviously, now entering the spoiler zone, everybody watch out. But obviously getting a Hakuno cameo, a pretty big touch on. I do kind of like how they handled it. This, obviously, we know for a fact, thanks to Clairvoyance and Future Sight, that will come back around, since we will get a summonable Hakuno and Hakunan. But this is a out of nowhere setup, I'm just thinking about, they called it the arcade collab, but
it's kind of the Extraverse collab, just in whole.
Yeah.
Like I said, you can pull things from Extra, Extella, even Last Encore for some particular vibes. CCC, no, it's
basically anywhere where Nero has showed up, this kind of touches on it.
Yes,
even to the point where, like I said, when you have that cameo with Hakuno at the end, they just say that basically like, oh no, don't, yeah, I'm not this Nero's master. I'm just was the master of a red saber once, but I've kind of, followed the thread back and been like, man, this shit's real messed up. You seem like the person who could fix this, and you're just like, yeah, I am. And you do the secret fate protagonist handshake and go about your business. And strictly speaking, again, Extella isn't as directly referenced, so there are a few hints at it, but a Hakuno who has access to the Moon Cell regalia would be able to do shit like observe possible timelines. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like the because it's not directly relevant, I don't think the story gets into it at all. But I can only assume that as a character, Hakuno has that power because of having the Moon regalia after Extella.
Yeah,
because I cannot imagine the ability to basically arrange for the plot of Lilim Harlot to happen without the authority of the Moon Cell behind it. Because Hakuno is just a normal wizard ghost, computer mage person, Though you want to you want to talk about a character who has a lot of compatibility with people. I don't think Hakuno is quite as broad as the protagonist, but they're a very positive matchup for Nero, Tamamo, Emiya, and Gil. Minimum.
You can add Altera to that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Through Extella, you also work with Altera, which is again very funny and counterproductive. And also, like, at least in a side glance with all of the other playable characters in Extella and Extella Link as well. Like, usually the protagonist is not working with them directly, but there's some level of compatibility there. And then also smash cut to that, the sad for Tamamo, but very funny insert when you do Medusa's story in Extella, where she, Medusa, despite being on Team Tamamo, decides to betray her, stick her back under a rock, and seduce their master. Medusa's not playing around, okay? She's not here for this mean girl shit. But so I think it makes perfect sense for kind of the two of them to come together. It does make me very interested to see both as a playable character and how as a story character we will see Hakuno in Ordeal Call 3. So it'll be interesting to see how that setup works. But yeah, no, the whole thing is I was gonna say it's extra all the way down, but that's not true. It's extra all the way up.
Yeah.
That's also that's a thematic thing, but I also think that's a very good note to like contrast usually how these scenarios go for us, where it's like, no. You're not going down, you're going up. You got to get out of this place. We got to get out of here. I mean, that's what the story, the shortest version of the story is just turn to Draco. We got to get out of here. We have got to get out of here. Oh, if we do Schedule 1 or something later, I got to see if we can do the video share and watch the latest Rubik's Raptor.
Oh, what did he do? What is he doing this week?
Ignis finally played as rebels in a Star Wars adventure. So they're the ragtag guys against the Imperial muscle, and it's one of those videos that Jay titled. We did probably something like we played the Rebellion for Star Wars, but by idiots, kind of a thing. Right, the Rebellion, but played by idiots. Which he's done that format several times, but he's like, nope, we mean it. The Twilight Ladder, I don't think so. I will say this for our audience. I do think there are probably a couple of beats in this story that are subtle or understated, where we don't actually explicitly spell out. I am reasonably certain that the Twilight Ladder is a thing that came from Hakuno.
Yes,
because
before it showed up, you had your commands seal pulsing. Basically, every time that happened, that was Hakuno going, "Hey,
yeah," and then it appears. And obviously, I can infer that because I watched Extra Record. I've played through Extella and Extella Link and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, okay, this is an extra thing. So them say, Hakuno saying, yes, I was helping you. I was arranging this all along because, I thought this was super sad. And somebody needed to do something about this. And, you just going like, you're right, I'll do something about this. Very, very, very good moment too. But it is also, like I said, not explicitly stated. It's just one of those things that like is pieced together. But yeah, no, the story I think is very interesting, and ultimately kind of like I wanted to say this, but we had only 2 mailbags left, so I didn't. But like the person talked about quote unquote, getting Draco to unalive herself in the middle of the story, and I'm like, also that would spoil the twist. That's what Draco's doing anyway. Like what Draco is trying to do by recovering all the beasts is trying to find a way to die gracefully. Like basically Draco, the what if of Nero, is trying to find the equivalent of what Emperor Nero had in proper human history of finding that graceful exit, right? Rather than deal with the rebellion or fleeing or whatever, in real life, Nero, committed suicide rather than whatever would have happened with the Romans. I do feel like there's a slightly missed beat where Fate goes very specifically with kind of that mythology of the thrice setting sun and stuff, which is part of like the legend of Emperor Nero that kind of arose after his death. I do kind of feel like Fate doesn't mention enough a real life historical fact that I've mentioned before, but despite the fact that several historians try to tell you that, oh yeah, that Emperor Nero was a tyrant, set the fire of Rome himself, and blamed the Christians for it, hated by the Senate, terrible tyrant. Nero was a popular enough figure that there were not one, but at least three.
He's dying. Hold it.
Sorry, my throat got really dry all of a sudden. Okay. It's probably because I've been too relaxed while Lucky was doing mailbag. Gotta do my vocal warm-ups. Anyway, I believe there were at least 3 documented cases where there were pseudo-Neros, they were called, or pretenders, where like some guy would be like, actually, I'm the Emperor Nero, I'm not dead, put me on the throne. And obviously this never worked, but it was a popular enough idea that like, the joke I was going to make is that Rome would settle out of court, but like, Rome would negotiate with these rebellions. So like, obviously, the Emperor Nero wasn't as universally hated by the people as the historians in the pocket of big Roman Senate would want you to believe, because otherwise, why would there be popular rebellions with fake-ass Neros? It doesn't work that way. Shit don't fly. So yeah, I kind of wish Fate would touch on that more. But
Nero's
like I said, good.
Nero's just that weird but a funny emperor that it's like, oh, Nero, you're so weird.
Yeah. Well, I think they do a good job of like, so Fate is never one to like stick to their guns and historical accuracy, obviously.
Duh.
Nero is a woman and all that stuff. Even though, by the way, I should bring out that at least since FGO, and I think it's mentioned in some of her events and extra as well, but FGO is not shy about the fact that like, yeah, we gender flipped Emperor Nero, but that still means that she had to get married to Octavia. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, we don't care. But yes, that would have been a complication, though. I don't know. Magic is also involved, so I'm sure we could have arranged something. In real life, Emperor Nero did have a kid with Octavia, but they died in infancy. Obviously, there's no historical impact there, so we can write that one around. But like I said, Fate has to not just write historical fiction, but also has to write like character beats. So I think they do a pretty good job of finding the middle ground of like the way they describe Nero, and why like at the end of the event when you tell Nero about Draco, she's just like, nah, that sounds like me. I could probably go a little crazy. I could get a little weird. But they pretty consistently write this thing about Nero of like her love is like a flame sort of thing, right?
All consuming.
Yeah. She is a person who loves intensely, not exactly loves selfishly, but kind of like expansively, and to the point where like other people are consumed. And I think that this specific event kind of puts a pin on it and is like, well, Nero is that way with her love because she was never loved as a child because Agrippina sucks ass. Also possibly true to real life. Like, even if people did care about Nero, they were not thinking about Nero on the same level. And obviously, kind of that sort of like consuming vibe has its negative, talking about Nero's tutor Seneca and stuff like that. And I'll have to check her dialogue later, but I'm still not exactly sure what the game wants to be going on about Locusta, because like I was thinking like when I did a fan servant for Locusta a while ago, I was thinking like kind of like toxic influence goth friend, like the in the Mean Girls group you have the one like literally toxic person. This is still that, but also like even weirder because
she's a mad scientist.
But she's got to like because Locusta didn't kill or attempt to kill Nero. The poisoning to give her like migraines and stuff was just to try and like as a control method. But like I said, the relationships I would still want to say toxic friend, but in like a literal way. Like just we kind of like have this moment of like, no, we're close. We're deep friends. I have created this thing as a pure expression of my love for you. Also, I am a poison murderer. You know what would be great? If we killed these people with poison. And I don't know if I would say that I saw the twist of her kind of like, that's a real good picture. That is very good meme. But I was going to say, I don't know if I would say I saw the twist of her, quote unquote, betraying us, like coming, but it definitely was one of those things of like, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop just because she does kind of show up out of nowhere in this scenario. And servants, this is a thing that Fate is pretty consistent about. Servants can't exist for no reason. They have to be summoned forth, kind of a thing. So the specifics of her actually being the septum floor guardian I wasn't expecting, though that makes a lot of sense in retrospect. But it's definitely one of those things where I'm like, okay, Locusta, I'm not exactly sure like why you're here, but you've been summoned here somehow, so I'm sure that there's something going on with you. And, like, ultimately, she doesn't even really betray us, in full. She's just like, no, I have my goals, and I've been waiting all this time to enact them, and I'm going to conveniently poison you to get these out of the way.
Yeah.
Like, she's willing to kill us to get her job done, but it is absolutely nothing personal. It is all about her own goals to try and, like, as she said, kind of, like, be there for Nero in her darkest moment because she felt like she wasn't there. But then it's like, hey, it turns out that that's not actually the answer to this problem. I do want to say I do kind of feel like the seven heads are a little underutilized because like they have this really cool CG and they all have unique designs that's in like one story section.
Yeah.
Then they turn into a giant seven-headed dragon that you beat up. Like it's real cool. They all have very, very neat, fun little designs. I think some people in our Discord were joking about them because they have a lineup like they're a season of tokusatsu villains. So, like, all those are good to see. And I think technically as Demon Pillars, they had unique designs as well, but those may have been also in arcade already. I don't actually know.
Oh, I'm actually looking it up. The poison kept in a golden box was a real thing, apparently.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Wow. Yeah. And as you may know, he wasn't able to use it, so...
Yes.
Wild.
Yeah, there's a lot of... I do talk about this in the Draco Wanted. You should go watch that chat. It's like fucking 40 minutes, so we can run it up. I have some ideas where they might reuse them. I find it interesting and funny that I feel like Luxuria kind of took the captaincy. And it's interesting because usually it would be Superbia, pride would be like the number one sin, but no. I
think... I'm sorry, no, I think I can see why Luxuria Lust would do it. Like, because we're not speaking of, like... I know people like to associate certain things with, like, certain sins, and while Lust does have, like, an element of sexual desire, it's generally just more seen as just a great desire in general.
Yeah, and it's usually Lust is set apart from like greed or gluttony because Lust is more about like emotional or spiritual desires, which are impure or incorrect.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, hell. Also, I say hell. I didn't mean that to be a pun, but I did it. The circle of lust in Dante's Inferno, right, is like that's burning hot winds kind of buffet everybody around randomly. Some of them are like lovers who were inappropriate, but some people are just people who didn't really have like illicit romances. They were just kind of like, moved around by desire. Also, you can tell where Dante's thoughts are at because lust is like the second circle after limbo, and it's like one of the most basic bitch punishments. Like, even though they are being like buffeted around by hot winds, a metaphor for being pulled to and fro by desire in life. Some of the like famous lovers who are there together are like still together, like they get to like huddle together and shelter against the winds. So you can tell Dante was like, this fucking lust stuff, like, yeah, some of that's probably inappropriate, but you know what, man? I got a lot bigger scores to settle. When we get to people who are liars, ooh, man, fraudulent shit, I got some stuff to say. He was cooking. Actually reminds me, I should double check, Purgatorio is the interesting one because that's the one where the mountain reflects the classical seven deadly sins, because the idea is you purge yourself of those sins as you ascend to heaven. So I don't actually remember what the circle of like purging yourself of lust was like. Purgatorio and Paradiso are much more philosophical and much less catty than Inferno, so they are much less popularly read. But yeah, no. So like, I think it makes sense for Nero for Luxuria, but I'm like, that's a good note for them to not just be like, yes, Superbia, they're up front. I think Superbia was technically, it was the last one we met, but that's because they were representing the first pillar. But yeah, like I said, we switch back to Seven had a demon form. But we do actually get, I knew it would happen in story, but I was very happy to see, we do actually get the third ascension Draco. And that's a lot of fun, like I said, because for the most part, I feel like Draco and Nero are kind of like mirrored, basically. Like, they're not properly opposites, but they kind of like, they reflect the same person in a way to emphasize the other, right?
I'm not entirely sure, but like I said, I'm probably not like...
Yeah. Writing-wise, Draco seems like... Because, like, it's just like I said, it's hard to imagine Fate's Nero being, like, a petty little evil gremlin.
Yeah.
Like, she has the possibility to be gremlin, but she would be much more like, yes, you fool, I am being a brat. Please, pamper me. And we're just like, all right, okay, Nero. Whereas,
I think
like
Draco's in the same way, but it's just like Nero and Draco will say the exact same thing and beat it in slightly different ways.
Yes.
And I'm trying to find the best way to explain that, and I'm not having the words.
It can be tough to talk about character stuff, because it's like, I think everybody can, as an audience member, everybody can see it from the writing. And I do think saying that Draco is more venomous than Nero because of such the emphasis on poison, that works, I think, as a beat, whether that's like she's just acerbic or kind of caustic in her demeanor, or just like actually more like there are moments where, like, if it was regular Nero in, like, Babylon, right? Regular Nero would be just like, a vacation? Cool. Take me to the beach, man. Let's go. Let's see if there's hot babes there.
Like...
Whereas Draco is like, you're not taking me seriously. What the fuck?
Like, Nero, like, regular Nero is, you know, the prideful and lauder emperor of Rome, while Draco is the defeated emperor of Rome. And, like, it kind of reflects in their turn, but they still, you know, like... Nero reflects like the golden age of Rome when everything was bright and pretty, but yeah. Draco represents, you know, when Rome was burning fucking down.
Yes.
Like, both Neros love Rome, but Draco loves the Rome that was burning and, you know, at the end of her life, and Nero loves the, you know, the Rome that was her
golden theater, basically.
Her golden theater.
And kind of like the seven dragon heads kind of have a motive rant in there, which is just like the original form of Mother Harlot Draco came around because, like, that's a case where Nero, like, instead of just dying, was just like, actually, you know what? Fuck you. How dare you? How dare you abandon me? You can't do that to me. I'm super cool. I, you know, gave you, Rome, all my love, and this is what I get back? Fuck you. I'm going to eat you now. You know, kind of a thing. Also, again, metaphorically happened anyway. After Nero was the year of 4 emperors. Rome didn't get their shit straightened out for a while.
I think his immediate successor only lasted like a year.
Yeah, no. It's like super short. I don't think there were literally 4 emperors within 1 year, but it was like within a certain month period they burned through a lot of guys. But like the fucking guy the Senate and the Praetorians all ditched Nero for, who was a governor from the provinces, didn't last long at all. He didn't do jack shit. Like, it's just one of those moments of like, yeah, no, that was not like, okay, Nero wasn't the greatest guy, was definitely getting a little more aggressive with like telling the Senate to fuck off and die. But like I said, they tried to ditch the Julio Claudians for some other guys, and it just didn't work out.
Good job, guys.
And like I said, also wouldn't even like Nero at first tried to flee Rome. He tried to like get on a boat and go to like Greece or Anatolia, and just couldn't figure it out. Ended up in a manor outside, and eventually was just like dismissed everybody. I think also even like before, at least according to some historical sources, take this with a grain of salt, because like I said, at some point a lot of retainers either abandoned Nero or were dismissed. So like our firsthand sources are very slim. But at some point was like Nero was like trying to do very similar to what is attributed to the last Constantine, of like turning to all his, you know, traveling companions, being like, all right, one of you guys do me a solid, stab me right now, and none of them are like, man, I don't know about that. And then, you know, you go out to, okay, I'll do it myself. So yeah, Draco kind of represents that spiteful side. But then we get Third Ascension, who is just like, that's the true like Nero but evil, kind of, but still not quite. Like, I love that we do the normal boss intro, you know, we get an Evil of Humanity manifestation, and then Third Ascension comes out and we get another one.
Yeah.
Draco generates her own boss subtitles. Yeah. Evil of Humanity, applause. And I'm like, no, that sums up her character very well. Like, they don't actually try and like define what the logos, what the sin of applause they mean by that, But again, I think the readers can usually interpret because, like, I think there is something about humanity about, like, talking about things we abuse or tools we use, like, applause, that nature of, like, chasing being applauded, being appreciated by people, adored by crowds, does have its downsides and, like, has been used against people as part of a human construct. It can be dangerous, but also it is kind of like just one of those fundamentally human things where, like, yeah, no, most people think of being applauded as pretty rad. But yeah, Draco shows up and is just like, aha, it's me. And I like how you can call out that she's acting much more like normal Nero. Great moment where Tiamat's also becoming big and hugs her, and Draco's just like, what's this? Are you challenging me? Well, I'll have you know, I've just become slightly taller. By the way, Draco, I'm sorry. You're still not as tall as Tiamat. I'm pretty sure big Tiamat is like, her femme fatale was like supposed to be like 6 feet tall. Even in those heels, your original height is like 4'10".
Oh no, like, Legendary's talking about thinking pride in terms of applause. Actually, I think Nero in this form like actually represents like all of the 7 deadly sins all at once, which I think is kind of the point. She is, prideful, not necessarily slothful, but prideful, gluttonous, envious, lustful, full of wrath.
Sloth is also one of those things that's like, there's been a lot of like what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of church literature and like philosophy about it, like a lot of ecclesial writings about what exactly is meant by sloth. So there's interpretations that could go there.
Yeah.
Also, no, big Tiamat is not acting more juvenile. She is more restrained. When she's bigger, she has to hold herself back more.
Yes.
So that means that her speaking gets a little less elucidated, and she like physically, I think, moves slower because she has to be like more in control of herself. Because remember, originally Femme Fatale couldn't talk at all. She just spoke to us in singing or like Lamu nonsense. But yes, I think everybody loves the joke where if Tiamat had tried to, and I think actually small Tiamat did embrace small Draco at one point, and she was just like, "Let go of me, you fool! How dare you!" Like a cartoon cat almost. Mm-hmm. Whereas a big Draco is just like, "Yes, indeed, you may rub your bosoms on me as much as you like. I think I appreciate this." Just imagine Draco, having her head stuck in Tiamat's chest, being just like, "Yes, I love this. Actually, thumbs up." Well, and it's because she even describes that like the third ascension is kind of built off, like, obviously, no matter what, Draco is kind of a what if, because the form of history where Nero became a beast didn't happen, and arguably could not happen without some timey-wimey bullshit, because, beast spirit origins are huge, and, the Emperor Nero was, like, in the years, like, 100-ish AD, so mystery was much smaller. But, this one crystallizes that what-if differently, and also kind of, like she says, takes on all of the extra, like, effort, basically, you put in the relationship. Like, because Draco actually spends time being contracted to you, she's just like, nah, fuck it, we can cut loose a little. So yeah, no, it's a great climax, and then like even after you defeat the kind of like re-manifested Beast 6, who then gets not depowered, but like loses their core, so they're still not the same. I will say that fight was still slightly annoying because of the unique class advantage, where I think only the story Draco and Tiamat get positive class advantage.
No, I think regular Draco got positive class advantage, but I do think only support Tiamat got class advantage.
Yes, okay, so that was just my fault for not spending money. Thank you, FGO. But even then, even with, like, you don't really need to double Draco it, because you got to support one who's mandatory. But I do want to say that, like, dear FGO, please, I know it's a little late to start fixing these things, but when you do that situation where, like, you've given me the cool story servant who's going to finish it all climactically, stop giving me NP seal for, like, 5 turns. That, yes, that did make that fight a lot more nail-biting, but it wasn't really interesting. It was just like, okay, but I could end this, 4 turns ago without this NP seal here.
Well, they got to keep it spicy. And unfortunate, if they do let people just NP straight out the gate, people are going to figure out a way to just immediately NP and end the fight.
Well, it's a phase the boss does on a certain break bar. I think it's on like one of the last ones or before that. So like I guess the idea is not to stretch out the conflict too much, but like I said, it's just one of those moments where it was like, okay, I see the setup, right? Like I'm supposed to use, use Story Draco and win because she's got all the story buffs and like has extra guts and shit, which is good because you take a lot of burn damage. But it was just one of those moments where it's like, okay, but you're cock blocking me, and while Nero cannot debuff cleanse herself and only gets one debuff immune, which I think they did work around. Well, that's what I'm saying. Talking about you need those 3 gut stacks is like it. I used all 3, but it would have been a little bit less of a nail biter if they didn't stick an NP seal on me. I guess that's just my fault for not always having one servant to debuff cleanse, sucking up a spot in my team at all times.
I wish I could remember what I did, but I'm pretty sure I was just like level 100 personal Draco.
Yeah, I mean, like
Destroy.
I said, you probably just could have double Draco'd, and that would be twice as much class advantage damage. Goes by a lot faster.
Yeah. Plus with the damage CE on it, probably, yeah.
Yeah. No, like I said, it's just one of those moments of like, sometimes I do still feel like FGO is like, can't decide whether they want to give players the like story support tools to do things in the story mandated way, but also leave it open for your own servants. So this is one of those cases where they're like, okay, so obviously you're probably going to win by using the story Draco we give you. So we don't want to make it too fast because you might have your own Draco.
I wish they would do the thing where like they do in other quests where you can pick, you can either use yours or you can use the support and then get the buffs that way.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Like,
I also, like I said,
nice.
I think I was just also a little annoyed that my Atlas Academy is like max leveled or very close to it. So I that's another thing that like I wish they would just patch it so Mystic Code EXPs were smaller, because like I feel like I have so much grinding to do on the other ones. I'll never be done with them before this game fucking ends. I somehow don't play enough to do that. That's a separate question though. But no, like I said, there's that weird balance point of like I probably would have been like fine and not had this moment of just like, man, you're really rustling my jimmies a little by stonking me out if my own Tiamat had class advantage. Which is funny because Tiamat does self-debuff cleanse on her NP. And maybe that's why they went with NP seal specifically, because that also stops even support Tiamat from just, juicing herself down and fixing it all. I don't know. Like I said, it was just one of those moments where I'm like, it was like a 5-turn debuff, and I'm just like, Christ, guys, that's so long to staunch out a fight that's already like, I've got like 50 burn stacks. Exaggerated, but it's a lot. You get a lot of burn. You get so much burn in that fight. So, ultimately, it wasn't hard, and probably the reason why we're able to do that fight at all is because you do the thing where you take Draco out of it. You have to break like 1 bar in the fight pre getting Story Draco back. But after all that, it turns into the kind of that big climactic finish of like actually unveiling the final stop on the ladder. The Starry Sky, which is a Starry Sky even leading into the New Dawn. That one wasn't spelled out, but we do a lot of thematic stuff with the sunset. Like the chant of each one of the 7 heads is, the Incarnadine is, we reject the setting sun kind of a thing. Real good thematic stuff. And of course I do like the effort though, where like we show back up at Chaldea and Satanta's there and he's just like, oh, I just grabbed back onto the Twilight Ladder and hung on real hard. I wanted to see what this Chaldea is like. I feel like because this is only a Fuyuki clear, they had to be careful about the dialogue. Obviously, for me, this was like on the bridge of the storm border, so like I feel like Satanta should have talked about how we had a sick-ass airship, but we probably only gave him 1 line of dialogue no matter what stage of the story you're at.
Yeah.
That's good. I also appreciate that we write out Kadok again to get around like when the story is set by him just going like, you tell him everything, and he's like, I gotta lay down. I gotta go lay down.
That's the exact reaction I wanted from him, though.
No, that's perfect. That's great. But it's definitely like, whew. There is actually Axe. That's actually true. Because remember, you can do this by only clearing Fuyuki. So there's a version of this that is like, while you're still doing part 1, I believe. I don't think you have to clear Solomon to do this event.
No, I do know there is like a different scene. I don't remember what it was, but someone said like there's a different scene with Kadok if you haven't cleared certain things.
Yeah, no, I believe there are multiple permutations of the story depending on where you're at. Because, like, obviously, if you started the Lost Belts but haven't finished them all, Kadok would not be in your Chaldea either. So, like, there are slightly different variations on how that the kind of coda, the bookends go. But yeah, no, like really interesting writing. Really like what they did with like all the characters, and another beast for the history books. I do at least. Obviously, I think, like you said, we knew this already because Koyanskaya tried to take Foe's slot, basically. But I do like the idea that we have that, like, what I'm pretty sure it's what Gatia said to us, but it might have been Gilgamesh when talking about the beasts. But basically, it was described to us that's like, no. Once a Beast 1 has manifested, the dominoes will fall so that you eventually get to Beast 7. And the story once again reiterates, like, no, that's correct. You can't keep skipping. Like, all of them will manifest at some point, and you must face them. You think you dodge them by only getting half a guy? Well, now here's the other half of a guy. Like, we will make sure that the whole thing manifests. Oh, Beast 6 got defeated in a different timeline? Well, guess what? Some of them don't want to give up, so we soft reset. Got to do it again. This still brings me to a point that, like, it's not been like a heated topic of debate, but it's something that our Discord has mentioned before and has gone back and forth on, and we even talked about. We have no fucking idea about 5, huh?
Nope.
We don't know where that one's at. Like, I'm pretty sure because deliberately they set up this moment where Koyan has tension with Foe that she was trying to become a new 4 and replace him as cherishment instead of comparison. And then we jump straight to 6, who we know is in 2 halves, and we've met 7, A7. So, like, we have refused to explicitly name a 5 or number a 5 as 5. Technically, I guess no matter what, we'll have fought 7 beasts, but it's only because of the power of cheating and bad math. Because didn't you know, chat? 7's not 7. It's actually, if we add 2 more to that, it's actually 9. Yeah, I guess that's how if we add the 2 extra from the halves. What if there's a numbering joke in there? 7 is actually 9 or something. But yeah, Lil Harlot, great event, real good rating. But I'm going for a little just under the 2 hour mark. Well, we do not want to be here forever. We got a few different things we can talk about.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to What's Up. I mean, we did talk about it last week, and I think it got mentioned as an aside in the text chat, but do we want to start with Rain?
Oh, sorry, 1 second. I'm doing some quick research.
Quick math.
Yeah, we can start with Rain. Like, it was looking into fucking the beast real quick and seeing if actually anything was known. And it's actually hilarious. Known beasts, 1 through 7, and a couple more have things. 5 is just unknown. None. Unknown.
Yes, like I said, haven't sniffed number 5. We've got fucking fake ass beasts from alternate timelines before we got a 5.
Yeah, no, Camazotz and Spacer Rusher goes on here. Oh, and apparently Dodgy is as well.
Yeah, Dodgy.
It says question mark, but her logos is collapse.
Yeah, I think that was said somewhere in Tunguska.
I don't remember.
There's a lot of dialogue, but yeah, no. Dodgy is specifically supposed to have been a beast like candidate. I don't know if she ever fully manifested as an evil of humanity.
I believe she became the Millennium Fox, which I believe was a.
Like
I'll look into this later.
Yeah, she should have been on the path to becoming an evil, but I don't know if technically she manifested the full spirit origin because Taigong was sent by heaven to nip that one in the bud. But yes, Rain. In a not a shocking twist, but in a slight twist, the latest AP is out already.
Yeah.
So number 41 is already live. It's titled "It's All Ogre." The description: there's an ogre in this one, or is there? Or how else did I phrase it? It may have been. This is the one with an ogre in it, or is it? Smudge on my phone screen.
But we're finally booking through things in Rain, and we're slowly working our way to macro scale. I think once we hit, honestly, I don't know how far we'll get in next session.
Next session should be more montagey. Like, we do have a couple of scenes specifically for character beats, character on character interactions, which are always kind of like nebulously timed anyway.
It's true.
But the actual plans that you have, like goals to accomplish for next session, are much more, like I said, much more montage-like or vignette-y.
Yeah, so we shouldn't be getting into the necessary gritty. Like, we weren't expecting to get into the necessary nitty-gritty last time. And unfortunately, I think that bit us in the ass a little bit.
Yeah, I think you guys, it's so weird how we kind of like pendulum back and forth, but genuinely, I think you guys got too used to 2 vignette time, despite the fact that it had only been like 2 or 3 sessions since you last had to fight a horrible monster.
Yeah, So, well, actually, give me 1 second, real quick.
Sure, I'll give it a second. Let's pause. He's back. Sorry, a little note flashed up on Audacity when I unpaused the recording. I thought it was warning me about how much time was left, and it's like, no, disk space remaining for recording 77 hours.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's good. Okay, that was not an alert I need to be worried about. That's just a running count it has. Anyway, you guys started the session by running through logistical stuff a lot, which was good.
Yeah, no, we hammered out the details for Summer Core, which was a little weird because we want to make plans and actions, but unfortunately the mechanics of Rain doesn't necessarily give a concrete guideline for that. Like, because we have a plan to throw a big Summer Court bash / festival / vacation time for the High King. And we want to make sure all these events go off and these events go off well. But as Rain is written, doing said things doesn't actually provide a mechanical benefit as is. Neither does it necessarily do a penalty if it goes wrong either way. I think you came up with like some ideas to make it work.
I mean, so Rain does allow like generalized stuff, but the problem is that like the way the mechanics work is you don't really pre-roll that out, right? Like, strictly speaking, like putting on a good party for the High King should be like improve the culture or rise in standing rolls, which they are used to like have a mechanical purpose to increase your company stats, but they don't have to be that way, right? They can just be, you can just do them because that's what your company is doing. The problem, like you said, we ran into is that Rain is not really designed for pre-prep of your company actions on the company scale. You don't have your company like roll improve the culture before you do another thing that's a company roll, unless you're using it to like increase your stats ahead of time. What you do is you have player characters take actions to give bonuses to rolls. The thing is that since Summer Court is still a few months out, I almost said days out, that's not right. That's also correct, but much bigger scale. But since it is so many months out, it's like there's only so much prep work you guys can do now, but also I think it's very important for you guys to figure out ahead of time, right? So it kind of turned into mostly just like an idea jam session of like, okay, here are our big goals. How do we sort this out? What are we looking at? Kind of a thing. And a lot of it I just kind of had to like, I did take detailed notes on kind of like what you were asking for, but a lot of it is still, like I said, just kind of like general stuff that I'll be like, okay, and then later we'll figure this out. Like, what was it? There was one of the descriptions. I don't remember exactly what. I'll have it jotted down for sure. But like, there was a description of one of the company actions, right? Which I read and I was like, oh, that's definitely what you have in mind for the Norland Fair. I think it was like improve the culture. So like that'll probably be the roll you roll to see how well that goes. But
yeah, it's just the problem is that as the rules is written is once we make that roll, then all of our resources are tapped. Even though we might have been prepping for this for months to make sure we don't tap resources. So it's.
I mean, well, in that case, that's what to represent that the prep work is. If you guys wanted to do it, that would be to roll your company actions to improve your stats ahead of time. Which I think Axe already said he's setting up for one of those rolls.
Yeah, but we can do temporary ones, but those still deplete resources and they only last for the month. So
no,
when the new
the permanent buffs.
Oh, the permanent ones.
Yeah, you can just roll company actions to permanently improve your stats. They have difficulty involved. And like I said, I'm pretty sure Axe is using one of his esoteric disciplines to set up to make a easier case to do that with. Sovereignty, I think, is the one that reflects on. Yeah, so like there are moves out there to improve it. And obviously, as your numbers get bigger, the penalties get less imperative because you have, if you have like treasure 4, that means that hypothetically you could probably use treasure up to 4 times per month, and so on and so forth. So yeah, like if you, and I may bring this up to the team because you guys are going to be involved in company stuff. If you guys wanted to like hard and fast improve your company, now it would be figure out ways to make company rolls to permanently improve your stats ahead of time, if you can make the difficulties and prepare for those. It's just that I think other than the sovereignty line currently, the crew is more interested in doing different things, I guess, with their downtime is how I'd phrase it. Like you guys, because it is the plot I'm presenting to you currently, but you guys want to use company actions to resolve your smuggling issue sooner rather than later. So you're focused on using the company resources to do that now and prep for that now rather than build up company stats for later. Like, honestly, I think the thing, like, I don't think the summer court thing was just that weird. The main thing was just that it was a case of, like, you guys had kind of a vision. You shared a few things you wanted to get out there. I think correctly, because both in and out of character, everybody wanted to figure out kind of what we were doing plenty ahead of time.
Yeah.
So that it wasn't like, I don't start like, all right, it's the first month of summer. What's summer court going to be? It's going to start, the start of next month. Not actually exactly when it's going to start. So, like, it was a thing where you guys were hammering some stuff out. I talked about this, how I'm thinking of, like, planning it more so that there are, like, only, like, one major, like, story beat per, like, season even over several months.
Yeah.
So that you guys can feel the ability to spread out your company roles and maybe, like, do the company stuff to improve stats or work on other things, whether that's through esoterics or whatnot. So, like, obviously I wanted to tell you guys about Summer Court ahead of time for story reasons. Like, it made sense to bring up in dramatic. I did not necessarily write the story that you guys needed to start hashing everything out in character right now in spring.
That's true.
So it is definitely one of those cases, I think, where it'll go smoother once we're closer and we actually get there. But, like, I definitely was like, while you guys were talking about it, people can listen to it in the recording. I'm like, no, okay, what you're describing, what you want the effect of this thing to be is going to be this company role. But I hopefully this makes sense to Lucky and the audience. But I don't think it makes sense for you to make the roles to perform the things in Summer Court now because you're not actually doing them yet, right? Like, you're not creating the Norlon Fair right away. It's going to be out there. And I don't even think you're planning on necessarily, like, even... I think it'll still be, like, a couple of months in-game before you start the physical pre-prep work. Like picking a fairground and stuff.
Yeah.
If you guys want to do that sooner, you'll have to let me know, because I'm not... I haven't thought about what roles I might make you guys have on a character level for that.
That could be interesting. But I want to tangent here slightly and go back to Fate and the Beast for a second, because, like I said, I'm doing side research here. And I was pulling up Amaterasu's and other things here. There's an interesting line here from basically, extra stuff. I read this line: being Tamino no Mai's true nature, the incarnation of a nation-ruining harlot, Amaterasu transcends human knowledge and comprehension. And other lines, Dodgy, back in Tunguska, when Tamamo and Tamamo Cat were talking about how they are not Dodgy. They talk about how even Tamamo Cat says they are not crazy enough to try to turn the entire nation into their husband. So I do think we probably one of our missing B slots. I don't know if it's like 6G or 5. It's probably a Tamamo.
Yeah,
it's probably a Tamamo face.
Whether that's like that Dodgy actually manifests as like a manifestation of Amaterasu because Nasu found a very funny Shinto Buddhist through line.
Yeah.
Or actually it's golden faced white-furred fox.
Apparently in Fate that all three are the same. Apparently Dodgy was able to do something to syncretize her with Tamamo and Amaterasu. I'm not entirely sure. I've just been like,
God, I read this a while ago. Is it in one of the Tamamo's profiles? Nasu actually has a, like, he said in an interview or in a character notes, but basically, like, he described a story where he went to I think it was a shrine to Amaterasu, but he went to a Shinto shrine, but inside the innermost sanctum, he found that the statue they used there was it's the Japanese name for a Buddhist and Hindu deity, but I think it was Daikini?
Yes.
Yeah, so, like, that was just Daikini. A moment where he had a realization that, like, this temple was basically worshiping them as the same deity, and so that was, like, a moment where he was just like, interesting. So it's probably related to that somehow, but I don't remember the full story anymore.
No, I don't either. Like I said, I've probably read this before and talked about it before, but, like, thinking about, like, the 5th slot or G, I don't know if G, it's actually going to be G, because G is supposed to exist in Prototype, and it was supposed to be...
I do think it will not be G, because G and S are both described as city eaters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, like, from the blurb you just read about Amaterasu, that would be nation destroyers.
True enough.
And also it does kind
So
of put
maybe
us in an
5.
interesting case where like what
So probably 5.
kind of talked about like what each beast kind of like represents destroying. Like Gaetia destroys time, basically. He destroys human history. Tiamat kind of wants to destroy human evolution, basically. Like she wants to reset the biological paradigm of Earth.
Yeah.
Both Beast 3s are about love. Beast 4, especially like I said, if Toy and Sky was trying to become a new 4, that seems to be about the relation between humans and beasts. Mm-hmm. Like humans as apex predators. And then 6 we know is about cities. 7 is probably about space, planets, etc. So if like 5 was like the nation building scale, that could track.
Yes, no, but it does say here that Amaterasu is just straight up, an evil of man, even though she is, the divine sun spirit. It's a little weird. I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up and get that out before I lost it.
Yes.
But back onto Rain. So yeah, no, we're getting a lot of planning for summer court done, and we've hammered out a plan. It's very cool. I like it. I was very vocal about it, and I think most of the player characters agreed with what we got on. There was a little bit of back and forth here and there on what things. Specifically, we had to really hammer out what we wanted in the tournament arc.
Yeah. Well, that when you guys started proposing, I didn't write them down ahead of time, but like the moment I got the proposals, I was like, okay, so I have some questions to ask about how to make this more interesting. And like you said, it turned into a discussion point, especially with the tournament, because I feel like it got a little pro wrestling. We tried to keep it from going too pro wrestling, but like there was definitely that moment of like, man, we can really make this sports entertainment,
No, and so we got there. The normal unfair, you decided not to just make it not just technology, but put it up for like artisans and other things. Maybe get some patronage, show us off. Because as we explained in the session, this is an opportunity to show off Norland and Tyne off to the High King and be like, check us out, we're so cool. Maybe you want to help us be cooler and whatnot. Because going into this, I wasn't exactly sure what we were supposed to do at Summer Court. We knew that the High King was coming to hang out. And we're just all like, yeah, but what do we actually do? Which is like doubly funny because apparently the High King hadn't held a court here for several generations. It's just like, oh, well then. So not much precedent. But you did explain it that, he's here to literally hold court. He's gonna, sit on a chair, take petitioners, hear appeals, listen to his counselors, and make decisions. So we got to make sure he's able to do that. And like I said, we settled on the 4 weeks where his first and last weeks will be very court focused, but the middle weeks we can take him out to go fishing, hunting. We're gonna have a hot springs episode, by the way. It's gonna be great. Drake's Burrow is a hot springs town. I forgot about that. So we're gonna take the High King there, and he can soak his old bones. It's gonna be great. But after all that, I think we were a little eager to get stuff done, and we did not necessarily prep as the best we could have and should have. Definitely on the should have. Hindsight is 2020. Everybody.
Yeah, firing through all the summer court stuff, which we'll leave some of you to investigate in the episode. But the reason why summer court was kind of put off from last session to that session was I said, I have several points to raise, and we want to hammer out details. So
yeah.
Like we did a lot of writing on that, and there were several policy decisions basically to make, at the policy table type shit. But you guys had one thing that you did want to, like, ever since the start of the session, it was like, okay, we want to do this other thing because we want to get this out of the way because the ogre is cock blocking us from several points.
It is. Well, I should say. But we rushed through things, unfortunately, and we paid for it. We paid for it badly. No one died, but someone did take 4d10 to the head out of nowhere. It was a little terrifying.
Yeah, that was the GM going like, oh man, Conrad, you're wearing a hat, right? And he's like, yes. I'm like, woo, okay.
So that was interesting. I'll spare the actual details on it because it was interesting in its own right. But as always, I had to give side-eye to Dallas. I was trying, personally, I will say this, I was trying not to bring it up. I was really trying not to bring it up because originally I was gonna have Enos talk to Nicola about Nicola. But I mentioned to Axe that if he wanted to, he could take care of it because, he's the Marquis and he should be able to, tell his
vassals.
Vassals, hey, is there something up with you, man?
And
So,
I think that
I
did
passed-
kind of like coincide incidentally with this is a thought that Axe has been having, but I feel like he is not quite as vocal about some of his thoughts as you are, Lucky. He likes to hold stuff back until he's got, I was gonna say eyes, dot the I's, cross the T's. No, that's not quite at Axe. It's he's waiting for the moment when the idea is fully crystallized.
Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, I also have a habit. I like to tell people my thoughts, so I don't necessarily blindside people with them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I am too used to Dallas not showing up at all during the week.
Yeah, I know. It was so funny. We had a big conversation. What was it, Monday?
Yeah. Because Monday, I was like having thoughts, and I was just all like, I think we should probably remove Nikola from the court physician position and put him like, court physician or court scientist or something. And, I started listing reasons. And then Dallas got on in the conversation. I had to explain to Dallas what was going on. So I feel like I've potentially stolen Axe Thunder because now Dallas is forewarned. And Dallas has already talked about how he's like, oh, yeah, maybe I should, cross these things off. And I'm just like, now the talk's not going to have the necessarily impact because it won't be that natural kind of reaction. And I'm like, son of a bitch.
I mean, I think we don't know for sure, but I think that there will still be time to do it. I would say that I think the conversation should still happen in character because like it was a completely out of character decision. Like you said, Dallas doesn't usually show up, but I do want to say like while every day of the week there's a chance where it could be post game carnage on Rain, Monday is usually the strongest. It's when the session is freshest in everybody's mind. Depending on how things go. Between all of our different like sleep schedules and time zones, like people may be thinking about stuff before the day, like even a full day has passed,
Yeah.
Like it may not even have slept on it.
8 a.m. my time.
Yeah.
It's like I got on my computer. It's time to talk about Rain, baby.
Yeah. So like we do get these kind of like back and forths of it. And like Dallas just happened to be available and reading. And so, like I said, it turned into a whole out of character conversation.
Yeah, no, I haven't also, we gotta do something like we're also gonna talk to Logesh, and Axe is like we haven't like had a big talk about that, so Axe will be able to bamboozle Loth with that one. But
yeah, I think
that
was
the big one that was sticking in my craw. And don't you worry, everyone, I gave him a big old list about why, and he basically all he could say was like, "Yep, nope, you're right."
I mean, I think that's a conversation we've had both recently and with. Or I should say in the past and the recent with this. Dallas is definitely the kind of player who is like, I think he even talked about it. Like he said that he thinks his GM brain was getting a little away from him. He was like accruing lots of different cool little things for Nikola to do.
I think he said he was trying to be 4 characters at once.
It totally tracks. I don't, I bet if we sat down, we could name the 4 different Nikolas. Great philosophical work. Never mind that, by the way, it was until you talked him out of it, it was a character beat for Nikola that he wanted to literally become 2 guys. I think you managed to talk him out of that one for the moment and have him figure out the become 2 people a little less literally. Not that wasn't like a very in-character beat because I literally had the Baroness Marin tell him like, well, you can't be in 2 places at once. And Nikola didn't go, I'll show them, but he went like, could I be in 2 places at once? Answer that question? No. Not in the way that you want anyway. But yeah, I mean he still wouldn't be in 2 places at once. That was his plan. His plan was to clone himself. But then he had to he would have to figure out a way because the way the Takwin spell works is that it's a new guy. He would have to figure out a way to like give that new guy his memories and stuff. That one we never fixed. We never solved that one. Good. Thank God.
Yes.
But yeah, like just Dallas just like accrues a bunch of little stuff that he thinks is neat or interesting, and then he will not necessarily like he's open to change. He's open to being different, but he won't do it just because you're like, fuck you, Dallas, I don't like what you're doing. He's like, well, I don't like what you're doing. But like when you can give him a nice long logical list of like, actually, here are the specific things that I've been thinking about in the session that I have not yet had a chance to bring up to you. And, you nail your theses to his door. He looks at him and he's like, yes, you're right. You have a very large list. Okay, I see. Now that you've spelled this out, I understand.
Yeah. No, yes, because I don't necessarily think of myself as like an elite player. Like I have my foibles and my flaws like everyone else. But, how do I want to say this? It irks me when I see someone going off the rails that they wanted to do with their character.
Yes, that's what I was going to say is, I don't want to say you're a stickler, but Lucky, you are very good at looking at things from the perspective of your character and wanting to engage with the other players as characters.
Yeah.
Like, I would say that you would be perfectly happy in every single game session we had if the players were firing on all cylinders on their characters' goals and beats. Like, obviously, you know, dice involved and they could be stymied, but if they were actively attempting to address whatever their next, like, character thing was, and not necessarily, like, jumping out with something to the side of, like, you know, a random thought I had, which was funny or neat or whatever, you know, like, obviously, like you said, you're not perfect. We all, well, I GM, so it's not that I get distracted, but I create distractions that the players bite on. But all the players have had moments where I've brought up a new fact in the world, and all the players have gone, this is an interesting new thing you've given me. Hold on. I need to know more about this. It's not related to what's going on right now, but it's brand new and shiny to me. Hold on.
It's true. I've been on a couple of those myself.
I don't think that's bad. It is one of the things about role-playing that's, like, because you're not, like, it's not like you're engaging with a video game where, like, even if things are sandboxed, like, things are being presented to you in a fashion that is designed to be in a certain way.
But the thing is I don't necessarily mind when characters, you know, take a new shiny thing and bring it into the hell. It's like like a lot of like Enos's things has like done this because like I said with Alestra, Enos is, you know, now, you know, doing all this research into saints and dragons and all that stuff, which has led him into research about, you know, the chalice and the 13 Knights, which honestly, this shouldn't be necessarily my vibe, but me as a player, I'm all like, God damn, this shit's rad.
And I think more about this. At the very least, you've got a small character in line because you've talked about how, like, Enos now has, like, a macro scale goal of, like, man, how can I be... Is there a way I can be as cool as High King Win? How would I figure that out? Well, this chalice thing was pretty important to all that, so rediscovering it could be in there.
Yeah, but that's also because fucking Lucky is horny on man and he wants a hot dragon widow.
That's fair. But, you know, like I said, it worked as a character beat.
It does.
I do also want to say this. Axe phrasing this as Logesh should be looking into it. No. Don't. I would be careful about, don't put character motivations that characters haven't put upon themselves into it. I presented Logesh with the chalice story and the sword, one as a mechanical safeguard because, like, genuinely, I did want to introduce this artifact and this story to the crew. And I was like, well, who can I give this magic sword to as kind of a token? And I'm like, well, right now, the only one of the crew that doesn't have a magic sword, not that I think Enos was ever going to hit anybody with his Calamitous Blade, but you still have it. Even now, you still have it.
Yep.
So I was like, I don't want to feel like I'm overbalancing anything. So Logesh is the one who would deserve it, especially after the object lesson of the Wraith that can only be hurt by silver, you know. And then presented that to the group. While Logesh is interested in figuring out more about this thing he's been given, I would not put too part about like shackling his character to the chalice stuff. Loth has talked about how he thinks that he probably should look into it, but as a character, Logesh is much more concerned with, not even I would say with like being cavalier to the Marquis. He's much more concerned about his character's turn from kind of like bodyguard muscle to like an actual member of your council. Like he has been studying matters of like law and economics and stuff and history for a long time, you know, at least several in-game months, plus I think all through the time skip, right? And like, this is the moment where like, I think both Loth as the player and Logesh as the character is like, I can start applying this stuff. I can start being more, doing more, you know? Mm-hmm. So he's not as focused on the magical shit because it's like, hey, we need to get in there. Also, again, we're not going to spoil it, but the like I said, the guys chewed through a lot of stuff logistically and were like, okay, we were just here for like 3 hours doing numbers. We want to fucking go outside and accomplish tangible goals. And just breeze right into that. That went long. That involves a combat encounter that the people were not necessarily prepared for at that exact moment. And so things were a little suboptimal.
Not once, but twice.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean, though. The dice is what the dice does. You guys got to prepare for that. Stuff happens. Yeah, I joked about this after the session, but I was like, the dice were like, hey, fuck that shit up. Fuck them kids. Get them. I was like, all right, okay, the dice say get your ass. And sometimes that's what GMing is like. Sometimes the dice are like, hey, man, probability says shit's bad. Figure it out. And they did. They rose to the challenge. But I do think it meant that the session went on. The like video recording, not truncated, is like almost 5 hours. I think even with me editing the audio version is still like 4 hours of just content with me snipping out, background noise and dead air and shit. Those kind of beats, right? So like in the fight, you guys are out there. And so like there were moments where we were like realizing like, actually no, there were a couple of character beats where we just whiffed in that fight. So like several things happened with different characters. Like the question of like what should Nicola be doing came up because like Nicola, was thinking about like, is Nicola acting to the best of his ability? Because there was, some injuries to go in and he wasn't necessarily like immediately working to heal and some other stuff there. And there were, a few different tricks. I do like the moment where like, this is not a spoiler because some members of the audience probably will have caught it, but I did like the moment where, what was it I don't think it was actually in the fight. It was in that big talk with Dallas after, but Lucky, you were like, I've only just now realized that Nicola has a martyrdom complex.
No, that was on air, I believe.
Okay, that was on air. All right. I was like, I'm not sure if
Yes.
that was in the fight or after, but no, that moment of like, oh, I've only just had this click. And I was like, oh no, I've known that since I think somewhere in the 20 sessions, if not earlier.
Yeah.
So like, yes, from a character beat perspective, some of the things that Nicola does are making sense. But also definitely is like, we should talk to him about that because also like, man, you gotta relax. But like very explicitly, Logish's magic sword was like, that was a moment where like he actually used the spell that's in the sword. And later I was like, shit, you guys really should have probably cottoned on to that before.
No, that's gotta be one of those things that no one actually explained that could happen. And like, this is one of those problems about having like meta knowledge ahead of time is not, you don't necessarily react the way you should have in the moment.
Yeah.
Because we were having that moment, it's like, yeah, no, like we heard you tell like what the spell sword was in, that we heard you tell him the spell that the sword had and what it can do. And we're just like, oh, neat, sword beams. And did not actually think about the fact that our characters did not know. So we should have been more surprised.
Yeah, I think you guys knew out of character that like there was more magic in the sword than just it's a cool sword. But
yeah,
never before had you seen that. And I did describe it. I made very carefully when I showed Loth the mechanics of the spell to not describe the fluff of the spell. So like that was your character's first instant of that moment I described of like it, releases as described like a silvery blue light in the shape of the sword swing. And that was like, no, you guys have literally never seen that before.
Yeah, no, because remember, X, Logesh instinctively knew the spell when he held the sword. The sword was never explained. It was just known as, it was Argent Light. I can't remember the knight that wielded it, but...
I'd have to look it up. They're all super fucking Kelty.
Yeah. So, yeah, we knew it was probably like some sort of magical blade, but guess what? Enos can make magical blades. So it's like,
Yeah.
Like, so it's just one of those things that like, oh, it could just be really sharp. Maybe it glows in the dark or something. Something like shooting a ranged attack from the blade.
Yeah, it has a combat spell inside, which is...
Yeah.
And I described the mechanics to Loth, but in vagaries, but I can also say, like, the way artifacts work with a capital A is they have a single spell inside them, a single sorcery spell, that is rolled with the pool the sorcerer, when they made it, an artifact had. So whoever made that thing had 8 dice in a sorcery style and put a spell that, like I said, none of you are familiar with in it. And it was very effective. So it was like, that was another moment that would be like, I was even thinking about it, I was like, several characters probably should have brought that up because that would be imminently interesting to them. In fact, I think it's everybody but Conrad who was unconscious anyway. Yeah, no, I will try to find time to talk about it because, actually, I found this hilarious. We've been Mega's been working in the spell tank for a little bit and actually came up with one that I am somewhat excited about. Visions of Earth, which is actually, I feel like it's a combination of a couple things. Because I don't remember like why I was talking about it. But I think it's talking about we used the gif of being covered by the earth.
Yeah, being covered by the earth, and I was like, I was talking about how Gangrels and White Wolf had the ability to, sink into the earth to rest and recover, And then at another point, I was like, man, I need another, I'm not like, I don't need like, I need like a better, what was the spell?
Read the soul, I think, is passive an object.
Yeah, it was like Read the Soul, but I was like, I need a better one of these. Because Read the Soul, while useful, it is only useful for recent things. Like the height of the spell.
In years.
Yeah, height in years. And even at high heights, you still only get like indistinct impressions. I'm like, I need a fucking vision quest for like historical items so I can kind of understand what they are. And Omega basically took the, buried in Earth concept and the visions of the things. They made visions of the Earth, which is a really cool spell, which basically puts you into a coma, and which you take a really good nap and you go have a fucking vision dream about like an object. Usually you have to have that object with you. So I'm already imagining Enos is gonna, go out to I don't know, does Stone have a cemetery?
You have catacombs under the castle.
Oh no, that's even better. I'm gonna be like, hey, Logus, let me borrow fucking Argent for a while, and he's just gonna go lay down on a catacomb bed, sword against his chest, like, all right, I'm gonna take a nap, y'all, and die.
Big nap.
It's not actually dying, but he does enter a coma.
Yeah, it is very explicit that the casting time is like 7 hours, and it's like you're basically asleep. You're in a coma. You don't respond to anything up to the point of taking damage, which effectively cancels the spell.
Yes, but you start, you basically ask a question. I'm like, oh, that sounds so rad. Because it also gives Omega the opportunity to do weird vision shit again.
Yeah.
Which is always fun.
Yeah, and that's kind of where it came from, because I think previously that week we were talking about divination spells and having a few, and we discussed, because one thing you were discussing about when thinking about your office was like another spell that I came up with, Silent Stones, which is like, can I magically soundproof my office? And I'm like, hold on, let me think about that. And like, yeah, I came up with one for that, of like, blocking off divination abilities, so, of which there are several, but that got kind of on that path. And then you brought up like, man, I want to look at that stuff, and I'm like, okay, let me cook. I'm always open to like coming up with ideas that will suit the crew. Like after all that discussion we went through with like healing, I was like, okay, for alchemy, I've thought up an AoE heal.
Yay.
Not necessarily would have solved the problems we were looking for, but it is the kind of thing of like, I would like Nicola to be able to feel a little proactive with his healing in a fight. And that was the thing that was mentioned in text. We didn't say out loud yet. There was some confusion about healing in-game. Strictly speaking, nowhere in the rules on healing does it say you can't do it in a fight. It just says it's a roll, which means it's an action mechanically. The major restriction is that you can only roll knowledge plus healing to help somebody recover shock once a day. So once you do it, you're locked in. So there was some confusion from the players of like, oh, can I attempt to do that in combat time? The rules say that you can. Like I said, Dallas said that he thought that he heard a specific rule against that before, and I was like, I think what happened was probably during the Black Dog fight, he was trying to like sprint across the arena and heal somebody, and I was like, you're gonna take multiple action penalties. You can't roll a run check, which I'm sure Dallas was very bad at that time, and also a healing check in the same breath if you want to haul ass like 20 or 30 feet and also heal. Like, genuinely, most of the times in fights, I don't think you guys have had enough downtime or security for, like, Nicola to, like, heal you. But, so I developed the spell Aromatica.
This is the other thing. Dallas, if Dallas doesn't feel like he can heal himself, he goes immediately into attack mode.
Well, yeah, he's trying to draw aggro to himself. He's like, I can't fix them instantly. I need to protect them by throwing myself into the problem. Which is, like I said, why I still think we'll have some in-character things to talk about, like, hey, Nicola, maybe don't do that. Because if you were horribly killed in that fight, who would be around to heal people after? To heal this person who got knocked out at the start of the fight? Who would do that, huh?
Very important.
I think Aurelia might have, like, 1 in healing. Alestra wasn't there. She does have the healing miracle, but you're still trying to keep that one on the DL. Once you're not going to keep that on the DL, because, yeah, you talked about out of character not doing that anymore. Once you're not doing that on the DL, you will at least have, if you can have her handy, you will have a relatively painless healing method magically. But still, like, lay on hands is, I think, probably one of the best healing spells in the game. That's because it's in the sorcery tree that's really hard to get into in character.
Miracles.
But I did design Aromatica as basically like, okay, instead of a healing potion, you make a healing perfume so you can spread it around. So it doesn't actually heal killing damage, but it heals shock damage in a fairly big area fairly continuously. So like if Nicola brews a couple of those and like keeps one in his pocket, that should give him the ability to kind of like, do some multi-attacking, basically, like tackle multiple problems at once. I mean, yes, if you want to get rid of that damage anytime soon, you're gonna need a potion.
But yeah, no, that was one of the things that we realized we hadn't do. We didn't prep. Well, I take that back. Dallas prepped fulminating jars, but didn't prep any healing potions.
Which
and
take
none of us
way
really
less
thought.
time than fulminating jars.
Yeah, no, they take 5 minutes. 5 minutes. It's weird. But yeah, we like not like this is like.
I mean, I can tell you why they take 5 minutes. It's because I treat healing as basically the inverse of dealing damage. Dealing width and shock damage is free. It's like a +0 cost. And doing like width and killing damage is like a +1 cost. So healing potion with like simple ingredients and like cast in minutes to like remove width and shock and turn width and shock to killing, cheap as hell. Fulminating jars do area dice of damage, which even if it's shock is a lot more valuable.
Yeah.
So much more costly. So it takes some hours. But yeah, no.
But like I said,
he put up the jars and did not prep potions of healing.
No, we didn't, and we paid for it. We paid for it. This also kind of got me on like a little bit of a frustrating factor that I think is being represented in Enos quite well as too. With my character in combat, which I'm like still struggling with slightly, but I am probably gonna make Enos give him a stronger combat focus, because I don't intend Enos to be a combat character. He's supposed to be a social character and a sorcerer first and foremost, and combat second. But the problem that I've realized is as much as I enjoy Soulcraft and all the fun things it can do, it does not have necessarily a lot of combat applications. There are some spells I can do, like Curse of Deatacid and Terrify, which are not damaging spells, but they can still be gnarly in their own right.
Yeah.
Terrify is actually very interesting because it does not actually give a cap on the amount of targets it can affect. It just says all unworthy followers suffer a moral attack equal to the height, which basically means if I roll higher than a 4 on it, I will basically just clear a battlefield with it. I don't know what the range is on it. I think it was at 50 feet.
Yeah.
Still could be a lot of dudes.
I mean, it's not quite that much because it's still, I think the book on talking about morale attack says that like, so long as you get over the height, or get over the threat, you affect as many people as the height. But still, like
it says it's I actually double checked this. It says that's variable depending on the thing. It could be the height, it could be the width, it could be something else entirely.
Okay, so in that case, yes, Terrify is a radius, so it's just anybody who is defeated by the height in the zone.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the balancer there is that it's not discriminate, so you will freak out.
Yeah, no, it's everybody.
So yeah.
That's why I haven't really got it, because usually if I'm going to be fighting unworthy opponents, we might also have our own dudes. But yeah, Soulcraft is very neat, but it doesn't have a lot of combat focus. So anytime that I'm in danger, I can't, rely on my Soulcraft. Well, I can. I could sunder the soul, but I don't want to get into the habit of sundering the soul everything.
Well, and also I mean, it's the exact same as the trick of like where I've had twice now, summon sorcerers, name sorcerers try and throw lightning bolts, which is also a diff 5 spell. Sometimes you whiff. Sometimes you're not going to make 5s. So that gives you with the worst part, which is like, okay, so if I hit the 5 or higher, the fight is over, kind of, depending on how exactly the enemy works. But if I whiff the 5, then I just like slap this guy in the face for no reason, and I've wasted my turn. Whoops. So it's like it's a move that's very decisive, very strong, but you have to apply carefully, both for dramatic reasons and also because out there. Also, I mean, yes, you can counterspell anything. Yeah,
but yes, you can counterspell Sunder, but it's like one of the things. It's one of the few straight up offensive moves I have, and it's kind of an all or nothing thing. And I don't want to just go around giving people the finger of death. That seems.
Yeah, and I mean and part of it is because of like how we originated these. Like it's been many, many months. I mean, literally, I think it's been years actually since Session 0 because it took us a while to fire on it. But like in Session 0, when we talked about sorcery, you pitched soul crafting as like I want the enchanting, the charm magic school tied to the charm stat to like involve kind of like this social stuff. And while we did get a little away from like. Originally, you were thinking something very flowery, like, oh, I want to have to like dance or sing, or chant as I do these things.
Yeah, we definitely got away from that. That was a little weird.
Yeah, I mean, that I think was just you started looking at how the rules worked, and you're like, boy, I don't want to take a multiple action every single time I want to do something to fucking bust it down sexual style. Am I goated with the sauce, type shit? No. But fundamentally, the sorcery is still linked to the charm stat, and so it is still the idea of, what we talked about, the appealing to souls of people, places, and things. So turning that into direct harm is harder. Like, soul sundering is just, all right, well, you just punch the soul out of him. You grab his soul and you slap it out of his body. Well, if that happens, he dies. Easy. End of story,
Mm-hmm.
Coming up with other strats has been, like, trickier. Not to say that it is impossible, but that's the thing we've talked about of, like, I have put a lot of thought into, these like sub-disciplines, these alternate styles of sorcery that is a thing that is, like, on you guys' plate to deal with. But you are correctly not just beelining to that stuff, but also trying to, like, figure out other stuff and get to it when you have, downtime, basically.
Yeah.
So, like, there's plenty of that stuff going on. So, yeah, like, but ultimately, like you said, this has left you in a case where you're like, well, it's a combat. What am I doing?
Yeah. And I picked up chains. Lucky Win actually went through several weapon ideas before he settled on chains. I was going to be fucking gun. I was going to be, fan and sword. Then I was like, nah, chains. Chains are rad. Because there's some fun esoteric disciplines in there, and you were kind enough to let me to benefit from 2 of them if I put a specific weapon on my chains.
Yeah.
Which would put me in a, as Axe put it, in a controller situation, which is quite fun.
And also, I want to say, I allowed this because I always like to be a proponent for the players, and I also think chain weapons are really rad. Chains are really cool. What's really cool about chains? You can put stuff on chains. So I have separate stats for the bill hook. So it's like, if you put a bill hook on a chain, well, then you're just dual wielding chain. Well, no, you're just dual wielding bill hooks and chains.
Yes. So, and like, Enos is like on step 4 of a Lashing Steel Path, which is very intense on its own way. Being able to pin while standing up and still attack while someone's pinned and stuff. But as I realize here with the troll, even if I am a controller, sometimes still stuff is gonna get you. There was definitely a moment where Enos had an enemy pinned and Death was still staring
there
him
was
in
one
the
of
face.
those logical moments of like, okay, so the rules say the enemy can't attack, but also nothing about you pinning him stops him from doing the thing that produces this attack. And you were just like, yeah, I know. Okay.
Yeah, no, I accepted that. This is one of those moments of like, I might die. But the guy was running for somebody. I was like, I need to stop him.
Speaking about Dallas's self-sacrificing plan, yes, he drew aggro and was at serious risk of getting flattened by a giant ogre club. And despite all of their differences, I think you guys do a very good job of the whole what I said in the session 0 in the early sessions of like, you guys are family. Enos did not care about the fact that he's a squishy wizard. He's a spoony bard, and went, well, I can't let this guy squish Nicola. That would be wrong.
Yeah.
Much like Nika was like, well, I can't do my original plan. I can't just stand here and let Conrad be squished. I have to do something.
No. Shout out to our companions for putting themselves in harm's way for us. I still think about that. I
had to be careful about the NPC stuff, but there were definitely moments of like I think the very first line of the combat was like, because he was the weakest. He was injured from some stuff in a pre-fight. You'll see the whole situation if you watch the episode. But Leslock was in danger, and I was just like, I got like 4 NPCs in the crew. What am I gonna do? Okay, well, Ike Wayland is just gonna stick her Warhammer in front of the ranged attack and try and tank for the Marquis because he hasn't declared yet. And I'm just like, no, she's a loyal vassal. That's what she would do. Her first thought would be like, my boss can't go down.
Yeah, nah.
And for the thing you're talking about with Moira, I actually reworded her. Because she technically completed her mission to get Aurelia safely back to her mother. That happened. Good job.
Oh.
So I reworded her plan slightly, which makes sense. I think, how did I phrase that exactly? I think her current mission is like, it's not, I gotta help these kids, but it's, right. Her current mission is teach these kids to live, which has multiple implications. Whether that's like to not die or, Yeah.
But no, like there's definitely moments of like, I really can't do anything in this situation because I had tried attacking earlier and due to the nature of the ogre was not actually able to do any amount of damage. I'm just like, well, shit. I'm not expecting every day to run into something that has AR2 all over its body, not wearing armor. It was only wearing a dirty thong. Ugh.
He's a tough guy. He's a big tough boy. Had a
He's a
shitload of
tough
wound
boy,
boxes too. I had a lot of fun with that. I like is enemies with a decent amount of wound boxes. I may try some different combinations with like maybe like only one AR or even no AR in places, but loads of wound boxes because it was like that let you guys really go ham and hit him hard and still go like, oh, this guy's still fine. Like it was a tough battle. It was a little tougher than you thought. I do think you guys kind of like correctly cottoned on immediately that like, or maybe not immediately, but like later you were like, oh, if we were at full strength, like if we had executed this plan as pre-planned, this would be easy. We would not have fear.
Yeah.
But that's also kind of why like you guys got the enemy ambushed you because it's one of those moments of like I always want to be careful to myself of saying like I can't just say, well, the ogre, it's not stupid. That's incorrect. The ogre is dumb, but it's smarter than some of the random animals you have fought. Like he can't read and write, barely seem to understand languages verbally, but understands deadfalls and snares and stuff, tripwires. Also, I mean, you keep saying it was 4 dice, actually. It was a 6 die attack. I rolled 4 successes, but it was 6 dice. Getting a match on that 6 dice is not that crazy. That's like over 50%, I think. Getting 4x is like there. Well, no, I rolled 2 10s and used a master die. That's cheating. That's the whole point. That's why it has a master die. Yeah, you can be kind of without for smart. No, it was definitely like a cunning predator and I think correctly like opportunity hunter. Like the whole point of this ogre creature I was describing is like they're really, really hungry all the time. They're tough, but they're not like stupid brave, I guess is the word for it, right? Like
Reckless?
He's not going to charge into, a pack full of spears. So they'll try and pick off wounded targets. They'll set traps. They'll try and, get for like children and livestock first. And so that's kind of how the whole situation evolved. And like I said, the players got another good hard look at like, man, we're not always as tough as we thought we were.
Which is important, I do believe. Sometimes it's always good to, I think it's important to humble your players once in a while, just to remember they are not always the end all be all.
And I think it puts things in perspective later because we had this conversation out of there, and I was like, yeah, if you guys were fighting those. If you guys had gone for the smuggling gang, the flat salts first, if you like fought a pack of those guys, no sweat for your whole crew. Like, threat 1 or 2 humans in like normal numbers, not actually a serious problem. I think I even phrased this as like Comrade killed like a dozen pirates in like the first weeks of the post time skip game. Now if you guys were fighting like, I don't know, Dynasty Warriors amounts of enemies, you're not at that level yet. You can be pursued. You are not yet Lubu. Maybe that can be Logesh later. But yeah, no. So it was that fun moment of kind of like just being like, yes, we need to prep. So yeah, like you said, you experienced both an in and out of character frustration with combat and are going to turn that into some stuff you're going to do in your downtime, which is good. That's how I think reactive character stuff should be in an RPG because it is kind of all, improv and chance, right? You got to take these moments and be like, some things went well, some things didn't go well. How does my character feel about that? What are they going to do about it? What am I, the player, going to do about these feelings for my character? So, you're like, all right, we got to go in the shop. We got to prep.
Yep.
And like I told you this, but, semi-spoilers for the next one. NPCs also sometimes feel these things and have these discussion. I think how exactly and when it will be, we'll figure out. But I think, Enos and Aurelia at least can have this conversation because she was also in that fight. And while she was very competent at some things, she was also not doing a great job with other things. So it's that moment of being like, I think I even phrased it earlier in the session as like, if you guys keep excluding her from your magical monster adventures, she's going to chafe a little because she's, as mentioned before, she is a teenage girl. And also like time skip wise, she's as old as like, Leslak was in the prologue. So, like, she's going to want these moments. But then you kind of did that thing where she got what she wanted, and then she realized, like, oh, shit, maybe I'm not 100% ready for this.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, you weren't planning on being character focused, so I think that's why you maybe missed an opportunity to pick up, even a couple points and a couple of skills that are a little cheap. But, like, being combat ready is not hard, but it does require you to invest in a cluster of skills, basically.
Yeah.
Like, ideally, you want weapon or fight so you can actually do attacks. And weapon is probably better because like fight is cool, but martial paths, those are all based around specific weapon arts, basically.
Yeah, I
even
don't
the
think there
unarmed
is one
ones.
specifically for fight, is there?
No, there are a couple ones that have side benefits to fight or just when you're attacking unarmed, period, but most of those eventually dovetail into using, weapon unarmed or weapon grapple. But you're going to want you probably want some dodge so that you can avoid attacks and, get around stuff. And then the other one, which I think is the point that Enos was not at, is you probably still want a couple points in parry because something that we hadn't really had a chance to use, but I did mention at least in this episode and a couple of recent episodes. Nothing in the rule says you can't parry ranged attacks. If you've got a thing you can use to block, you can try and block ranged attacks from hitting you. But it means that you have to have something you can make the parry attempt,
Yeah. Even if it's just your arm.
Yeah. That I do love that the way the mechanics are you can parry barehanded. If you don't have any armor on your arm, that just means you forcibly relocate the damage to your arms. And I'm like, this is fun. We like this. If you do have a point of armor in your arms, you can block without worrying about it. I would probably include that, you still do the damage redirect thing if they've got, something that pierces AR.
Yeah.
If you can... That would be very rare. I don't know if I've actually designed any that do that specifically, but hypothetically in the rules, you could design, for instance, a sorcery spell that is not reduced by armor but is parryable. There may be a couple that do that. Usually, by default, you cannot dodge, parry, or armor sorcery. That's actually, you get points taken off if they are that. Usually what I do is if it's physical but still mystical, I allow you to dodge because it's okay, you can't block a fireball because of, thermic shock, convection, but you can tuck and roll out of the way of a fireball. And then there's some spells that are just they're purely physical. You can, dodge, parry, and the others. Then there's other spells that are already so cheap, I don't want to give them the discounts, and I'm just you cannot dodge or parry a brick that is magically thrown at you because who expects a brick to fly? My favorite logic. But yeah, so parrying's out there. And then there's other stuff and if you want to be able to have a wizard fight, you need counterspell. But no, it'll be really interesting. Designing sorcery was very fun, and I think I've done a pretty good job of keeping every core sorcery to kind of focus on its niche. They're all designed with a stat in mind, and they're all linked to various things. So dragon sorcery is probably the loosest, but it still follows a pretty consistent theme where as I've done world building on dragons, it's okay, so it's through the legacy of dragons. There's obviously Hydrus magic because it came from him, but also there are separate dragons, so there are, separate lineages to get into, some of which are less understood than others. That's, talking about Alestra, that's Enos' whole current, well, maybe not fully his pet project, but you and Enos are both kind of there's this weird dark dragon with a corpse theme. I want to figure that guy out. What's his shit like?
Well, yeah, no, Enos isn't necessarily interested in dragon sorcery for dragon sorcery's sake, but he is in it because, well, he thinks it'd be interesting to actually, figure out dragons.
Yeah,
because technically they're an ally tribe. Technically, you want to say?
Yeah, kind of.
They're kindred.
At least the highest level of dragons are communicable, and we're able to make peace.
Yeah, so you consider them, one of the ally tribes, one of the kindred, and so figuring that out, helps them understand that, and there is a corpse eater dragon, and it's that's interesting, and it's all a big web of interests and goals that I enjoy. It's one of the things I like about Rain is I have all these separate points that kind of go into each other and spread out from each other in different ways.
And that's, I think, really the benefit of doing our session 0 and our deep building, and then me constantly building the backstory in the background, is that we do get these really integrated plots where it's like you said, Enos has a bunch of interests that kind of touch, but then that also works for all the other characters. Logesh is interested in law and stuff and economics, so that puts him in a forefront of trying to solve those problems. But also he has personal interests which lie with say House of Spada, and then it's okay, we can work on those. Or even Leslock being okay, so I got to do Marquis stuff now, and I'm very interested in the future, but also I've got a lot of this shit with the past. Got to solve past stuff. And even for Leslock, there's I feel there's two bullet points of directly related to the legacy of his dad, but also my literal original ancestor also clearly had some stuff going on that he left for me to unpack. That's great. Honestly, I think that's why I was you were can I get a read the soul that goes further back? And I was yes, no, I think I can do this, because it's that moment of yeah, I want you to be able to figure out, past bullshit in a fun way. But also, like I said, I left it open of no matter what, there's going to be some stuff that you're not going to solve. I think I even put it in the Visions of the Earth. I was like, nobody has ever successfully pulled off a vision of the pre-calamity period. Doesn't work. Never happened.
Well, I'm not too fussed about it. Like I said, I want to know how this cool sword was made. Maybe like, actually, I don't know what else like was on my to-do list with Vision of the Earth. It's definitely to go take a nap with Argent Lights.
I think you also said
maybe Flamberts as well.
Yeah, because Flambert's another thing that's like you guys have, and you're like, well, that's cool, but isn't this supposed to be more? Is there more of this? That's technically separate. I also that was Lucky didn't even mention this out loud, but that was a third thing where he was thinking about like healing rest like type spell, and I also put that in Visions.
Yeah,
because I had free points, and also I just like the idea of being like, I mean, you do take a nap for 7 hours.
Yeah, but it heals within shock, which is wild. It's a very good nap.
Yeah, it's restorative. It's probably because your soul is somewhere else, and that else is full of juice.
I also like the fact that in Visions of the Earth, you don't have to eat, drink, or even breathe. So you think someone could just bury you alive, and you'd be like, I'm okay.
Yeah, no.
Getting out would probably be a problem,
though. To do that effect of like the full buried alive trick, and like I said, there are many ways you do it. Like, you know, Iron Demons could probably just go to a like cavern with no lights and just lay down in there. But for others, there's stuff like, you know, like mentioning that like Logi enchanters sometimes just like literally close themselves in coffins or submerge themselves in a cast iron tub kind of a thing. You know, complete sensory depot type stuff. Because it's cool and it's magic.
It is cool and magic. And it gives me joy. I will get it eventually, but God, I have so many things I want to buy. Oh my God. Our XP rate is very good. Usually like 2 to 3 a session. Still got fuck tons of things I want to buy before I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm very generous with the XP curve of the game, and it's still working out.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually thinking about the Kill Bill 3-inch punch, but probably not going to have to do that, thankfully.
You could, though, because you already have Shatter the Soul.
I do.
Oh, no, like, that's another thing. Like, you've said before you want to go to the Cauldron, and I'm like, no, you guys are going to go to the Cauldron. Like, it's the beautiful thing of, like, you guys handed me some stuff and I worked with. Like, I think Axe just wanted, like, a kind of, like, mysterious other place, you know, because we kind of talked about not doing full Age of Exploration shit yet.
That's Reign 2, Age of Exploring, the new world.
Yeah, I wanted to make a joke about, Lucky, how did you know what my notes for Campaign 2 are? I mean, I'm not kidding, though. I've talked about this before. I already know what the sequel hook would be, and that's it, actually.
Yeah.
It literally is that. That would be very easy. But yeah, like, Axe wanted a mystical place that was, like, able to be explored. You, Lucky, at some points talked about, like, having some ancient ruins to adventure in. And, you know, and so I was like, yeah, no. The you know, shattered, you know, broken, shattered cauldron. So I'm like, okay, no. So this is the thing, you guys are going to go there. Because when I was developing it, I was able to take, you know, a little small cluster of island and weave in a bunch of different stuff. Like, there's the freebooters. There's technically a pirate thing over there on one island. And then there are a bunch of different, you know, smaller tribes in the island.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to make sure that the Shattered Cauldron did not completely replace the New World in there. So it's not quite the Americas. It's basically like, what if I combined the British Isles and the Caribbean? Because, like, climate band-wise, it's in, like, the tropical equatorial area. So there's not, I'm pretty sure there's not maize and there's not tomatoes there. I think I mentioned there might be potatoes there?
I don't know.
There were a few other, like, New World crops. Like, that's where red leaf is from and some others. And Baco, obviously, is a stand-in for tobacco. I did take a few cues from, like, the climate as well from the Greek islands, because that is the right climate zone. But, like, a lot of my naming convention was, like, super Gaelic. But the climate was stuff like they have access to, like, you know, rattan and stuff down there. Like, you know, no, they definitely have, they're an olive climate. But no, that's a moment of, like, oh, no, there's stuff there. There's absolutely stuff down there for you. Whether that's just, like, you know, just Leslock wants to reconnect with his ancestors, but also, I don't know, you guys are going to explore some weird shit.
Like I said, I feel like I'm never against, like, going out and exploring things. It's just, we always have things to do. Like, I don't know if we can have, like, time in this current year to run down to the Cauldron and back. But, like, this is the thing we talk about moving to macro scale. We should be, like, doing things in spans of, like weeks to months.
Yeah, like I think literally next session, we're just going to finish spring. Depending on what you guys do, we may just finish spring 2, basically.
Yeah.
Like, depending on how long you guys want for stuff. And then that'll leave, like, all of spring 3 for the spooky port.
Spooky port.
Because they're finally going to go to the Fog Veil.
Yeah.
I've been yapping about it for, like, 40 sessions.
No, so it's exciting. super happy to be a part of this. I just hope things go well.
We have our rough spots, but I think we got it because, like, ultimately, I think everybody really likes the game. And even if we do have kind of these character moments, it's like when you guys have conflict, it's because of love of the game.
Yeah.
Like I said, you lucky are happiest when the players are embodying their characters, doing their character things, and not necessarily doing things either because the player had a wild idea. Or I will also extend this to, you also don't like to do stuff just because the dice say so, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like, you are okay with optimizing, but you would never like literally, we were talking about like your food stuff, right? And I was like, actually, I hadn't brought it up before, but one of the temporary things you can do is you can, overproduce your fields to get a temporary territory bonus and then lower it the next month. And you were like, no, we don't want to do that.
No.
I mean, that was a joke, Axe, but I was surprised that you had never heard that extended joke because, like, it's probably a different generational thing, but I super remember the, like, vitriol and like the kind of going back and forth about power gaming and
the min-maxer.
Yeah, min-maxers, power gamers. Like, that was a huge, like, I'll call it a tension point. Like, that was in the 2000s and even 2010s, they were out there. And I mean, you're not wrong that, like, technically optimizing and min-maxing and power gaming can all be different, but a lot of those things kind of, like, feed into the same place. And like I said, I was just kind of surprised that, because I feel like you've at least known about the tabletop hobby for a while, Axe. I was kind of like, you don't remember the power gaming wars and all those dirty min-maxers? You might have been
people
like,
who would go for a hyper-specific build to do one hyper-specific thing that could basically take on anything, who got really mad when something happened to not let them use the hyper-specific thing because they sucked at everything else.
Or the other classic example of kind of like min-maxing is the like, yes, I've taken every permissible flaw for extra character points I can. What do you mean, GM, you're bringing up the fact that I have, missing arm, missing leg, missing eye, no tongue? What do you mean I can't cast spells? Yeah, they have verbal components, dumbass. You don't have a tongue. No, I bought the ability to cast all spells without verbal components. Okay, well, you need both hands because you need to do somatic components. It's sign language. Yeah. I haven't ever played with those people, but I know that they do exist.
No, like, I know. I've played with those kind of people.
I mean,
it's rough. It's one of the reasons why I think I don't like people who over optimize. And it's like, I think it's okay to be efficient at what you do, but when you become so super specific at being good at that one thing and you don't necessarily spread yourself out, I'm just like, are you actually a person or are you a machine just built to pass the fucking butter? It's like,
yeah. Well, and I will say, I think this is why you and Axe do sometimes talk in circles, because, like, Axe is not concerned about being a machine that just does one thing specifically as much as, like, Axe has anxiety about not contributing and not doing the one thing he wanted his character to do. So he wants to make sure that one thing works before he does it. Cause that's like a personal point of like anxiety for him. And this I know is not your problem because you are like, I don't care if I fail. Fuck it. Damn the torpedoes. Like, you are probably the player, possibly even tied with like Dallas, like, who is like the most ready to like, oh, you're making me roll something I'm bad at? Well, I said I'm doing it. So, if I want to do this thing, I've got to be bad at it. And I think that like Axe has gotten better through our discussions about trying to reassure him that like, no, you don't need to hyper-focus, because hyper-focusing can in its way cause problems. This is a big plot arc through, I think, like 30 sessions of 100 episodes of Clone Wars of like, no, you don't, like, obviously you want to succeed at shoot gun, but the way that characters are designed is you do not need to be outputting as much damage as you're mechanically outputting and still be contributing to the team. Eventually, I think we didn't, because I don't think Axe ended up like respecking his character too much. I think the end result that just happened is I just changed character design to be like fucking like 14 bosses.
Yeah,
where I have just like, okay, DPS check phase. All right, tank phase. Just like that sort of stuff. Yeah, you did change your vibe a couple of times. And I will admit, I don't know if you also wanted to be good at melee, because I gave you a cool Mandalorian sword, and I don't know if you ever got that to be quite as effective as your double pistol build. yeah, I think you hit people, but it was definitely like a difference maker. But yeah, like I said, that I think is a source of just because of different philosophy. But like I said, that's the beauty of role playing is different people will approach different characters, and some of it I think when you can make it relate not just to player preference but to character preference is when you can really get a shine in there. Oh, and I think you do a decent job of like Enos with that, Lucky, of like oh no yes that's also another thing. Sorry, actually, that's right. Axe brought this up, and I should have responded because I thought about it. I have also seen that kind of archetype of like some players get way too much into the not quite suffering porn, but like the Schadenfreude of like, oh yes, woe is me. My character is like doomed by the world. I have 14 curses. Look how sad I am. And it's like, if you take that too far, that also just bogs down the players as much as being too good, right? Because it's like, this guy can't go 5 feet without being like allergic to sunlight and water and some other shit we got to deal with. Why is he here and not like in a hospital, Like you got to find that balance.
I should totally play an impaired character next time we start a new game.
Depending on what it works out, that can work out.
Well, like I said, like I was gonna treat it with like I was gonna treat it with Bathos, where it's like, yeah, no, he's obviously having a bad time, but he just constantly cracks jokes about it. Missing an arm. Can someone give me a hand? I seem to have misplaced mine.
Oh, there's a lot of different fun stuff you can do.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, like, and I think like at times, I think Dallas has like in previous characters strayed too far to the I'm going to be overly complicated and have lots of bad stuff going on because that's more fun for me when it's there. But currently, I don't think Nikola has that problem where like at one point he was like he was asking like, oh, can I take a new flaw? And I'm like, I don't think you can. And it was like, why would you want to? Well, I'm going to lose my lost arm. But we reminded him that he's jinxed. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, I want at least one flaw. I need one character through line. I can't have no flaws. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair.
I mean, that's like I said, that wasn't recorded, but I did play a little of 5th edition D&D with Dallas as one of the players also, and I was a player. Dallas at several points in that was like, yeah, I rejiggered my backstory because I think I was playing like too bad of a guy. And like I was like, nah, that doesn't vibe with the group. I need to make my backstory like less tragic and ominous, and a little more relaxed.
God, that reminded me of a game that I wanted to play because I wanted to run in like maybe like Pathfinder or like maybe like 5th Ed. But I wanted to do a game where it was basically a group of adventurers who had to basically watch over like some sort of powerful demon or something. But they couldn't kill it because if they kill it, something bad would happen to the world. So they had to follow it around as it traveled the world and keep it from getting into trouble while God, I lost my train of thought there. But basically, you had to play babysitter to a villain. No, it wasn't. Well, it wasn't going to be a succubus. It was going to be. I think in D&D the proper term is a devil, someone who likes rules and contracts and stuff. And he would never do out anything evil, but he would constantly challenge the character's vibes of good and evil and whatnot as he traveled the world because. Like, that is, like, one of those things I love consequences, and I like challenging people's view on things.
I definitely think that's part of, like, game mastering for me that is very fun. And it's, like, that's, I think, one of the things that's, like, really interesting about Rain, but also is the thing that, like, brings out, I think especially for Enos, just because you're the most vocal about, like, man, I'm thinking thoughts. But even Comrade's done it a little, too. But, like, a lot of my fun is, like, you guys sit back and express an opinion and like, I mean, you guys are mostly in your like late teens, early 20s, so it makes perfect sense. But like the characters are like, I'm forming my opinion. Fairies suck ass. And I'm like, oh ho, all the fairies suck now, do they? Can't wait to challenge your preconceived assumptions.
They have been challenged. The good elf is indeed a good elf. She's still fucking weird though.
I mean, the word consequence does kind of like, it is not like a severe, but does have a little bit of a negative complication. But like it meaning that like your choices have impacts. You can technically have positive consequences, but I do think actually people refer to those as rewards. Now, a result or effect of an action or condition. So technically neutral.
Yes.
Important, but also the second use, importance or relevance of no consequence. I got 3 down as like consequence wrapper. Thanks, Google.
But no, when I use the term consequence, I do not. I use it in the neutral term. A consequence is merely the impactful result of an action you have. So yes,
I definitely
there
think a
are
lot
good
of people do
consequences.
mean it more as like sinister, but it is strictly
Yeah.
speaking by dictionary definition, just kind of open ended.
Yeah.
With, I will say, like, pop culture leans it towards a negative, but strictly speaking, the consequence is just you did a thing happens. It's like cause and effect.
Well, yeah, that's because they always say you will now face the consequences of your action to someone who just royally fucked up. That's why.
What will you learn? Your actions have consequences.
I mean, it's literally that's the reason why, because people it's only used when someone has done something fucked up, and it's like actions have consequences. All they're really saying is actions do things.
But specifically, usually, your actions, that thing you've just done, will have repercussions.
Yes.
AKA, X will remember
that. But, yeah, no, it's like, oh god, I don't remember the through line for this, but no, I like consequences. I'm not necessarily a fan of repercussions. Like, if you do something stupid, you should probably get hit back, but it needs to be, the appropriate kind of level and stuff, which is, like, Axe was accusing me of having, like, super intense foresight. I'm like, I really don't. I just think a lot about things, like, a lot. I basically consider, okay, if I do this, what are the potential things that can happen? And then from there I go, okay, what are my potential reactions to that? Like, no. Again, Axe, that's you, man. Because here's the thing, Axe, everyone does need to face consequences. Otherwise, what meaning does your action have?
It's true. If there is no reaction to action, then your action basically did nothing at all. That's the thing about just gaming in general I really like, is a lot of RPGs have taken a handle of like, hey, if doing a roll, doing a skill, doing the thing is like doesn't do anything, don't bother rolling. Don't introduce the randomness to it. Then there's no point in getting into it. I think that I first heard that best in like Star Wars and the edition of Legend of the Five Rings that Fantasy Flight Now Edge did, of just like, hey, we've designed the dice so that they have like positive and negative outcomes on all of them. That means that you should not roll the dice unless you're ready for stuff to happen. If stuff shouldn't be happening as a result of this roll, don't roll them. That's something that I think that, like, unfortunately, D&D kind of, like, I think, not necessarily intentionally, but did kind of crystallize in the hobby, is the idea that, like, oh, you have to, you're doing a thing, you have to roll something for it. Well, I didn't beat the arbitrary number. Oh, well, nothing happened.
I guess you can't do it. Yeah. No, like I've talked about this. I've really moved away from D&D as my thing as a game, because it's I've beat this horse for a while. You guys should know my feelings on D&D by now. But that's why I like Rain. Rain lets me be
the new rules, but the revised
Rain is letting me do all sorts of kind of things, and sometimes I just say, yeah, I'm gonna go do this. Like, it's like when Enos was making the music box several sessions, like, yeah, no, I'm just gonna go talk to the guilds about materials and plans. Like, that's something that doesn't really need a roll. I don't need to roll fascinate. Hey, do you get along with the guilds? Like, yeah, I'm just gonna go talk to them about business. Why should I need to make a roll on this?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're part of the guild. They extend you the basic courtesy. You have done nothing to make them think they hate your guts. And I do like the way wealth is handled, because it's just like, hey, is this value below your current wealth level? Don't ask. Don't sweat. Happens.
Get it.
And I'm just like, that's so good. I like that, because, like, obviously, for some stuff you're supposed to include rolls, but God, we spent so long on economics in fucking Star Wars, throughout so many campaigns of just like, until crystallizing the just like, no, wait a minute. It just says you just can do it for fair price. And that extended to Genesis as well. So, like, if you just want to pay a guy market price, you don't have to roll. Just pay him his money. It's when you want to haggle that you have to roll negotiation. 100% of the time, kind of a thing. Like, that took us a while to, like, catch on to that. And economics in games is always, like, a pain in the dick. Just because you're trying to model something that's, like, super complex and stupid in real life into a compact gameable setting. But also, you don't want to make it gameable, as in the sense that you can abuse the system, right? Like, you don't want players to generate. I think
I'm going to import this wealth system into Celestial Seas. I think it might just be good.
It's a good one. I definitely think that when I think I want to now, especially because that's probably going to be like an original D100 per system. I think when I finish Space Truckers, that is just going to be how, like, certain money is handled, is whether that's like an asset you can, like, buy up with points or what, is just like, Yeah, you're gonna have your credit rating.
Yeah, no, like, I'm already thinking about it. Like, my characters, you'll have, like, a starting, I don't know what I'm going to call it, but you'll have a starting wealth rating, and you can probably influence through it by, experience or special rules or something. And it'll just give you access to, is your money at this or below, you can get this item. Maybe you'll need, like, a restricted license for something else, but generally, you can get that item below. We do not have to get into it. Because, I'm going to be real, I like economics, I like shopping, I like logistics. But if there's one thing I have learned in playing tabletop, like all these years, when you start a shopping trip, that takes hours. I never know why it takes hours, but it does.
It is like one of the cliches of the RPG is the shopping episode. It happens all the time. Even big names, like I know, probably one of the most famous out there to do it, but Critical Role, like they've done some very big long campaigns, and it happens where they're just like, all right, we're just in there. I mean, I think the thing with like shopping off screen is like, sometimes that's doable, but other times it's like, well, no, if you can't like magically move the set while you're off screen, right? Like
Right.
If you guys aren't at market, you have to go to market. And then the thing is that like players want to do stuff, which means they got to like make rolls and other things. And then it's like, well, especially for recordings we're posting, I would like it preserved for posterity that you're making rolls and whatnot. Usually I would at least let people build their shopping lists off camera.
That's what we usually
And
try to
God-
do. So we
God
try to
knows
make
in
sure
Star
we
Wars there
have
were
what
times
we
where
were
it was
going to
just
get.
Yeah, fuck it. You've got the money. Buy it. I don't care.
But no, I'm definitely, now that
But-
the more I think about it, I'm probably going to
God.
import this. I'm probably going to import this into fucking Red Mist as well.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
no,
sure.
probably not Red Mist. Red Mist is my take on fucking red markets. I probably want to be a little bit more nitty and gritty with money in there, but no, definitely for Celestial Seas.
Oh shit.
What?
We're working on another new Ghost in the Shell TV
Oh yeah, no, it's being done by Science Saru.
based on the manga. So does that mean we're explicitly adapting the manga this time? Because technically, none of the animes have actually done that.
It could be.
Like the movie is closer, but it's still not 100%. We'll see. It's at least they're back to 2D. No offense to IG and that stuff, but like the 3D jump was a little weird.
It was a little weird. It was still okay. I still haven't watched the second season.
I liked it, but
Oh,
it
yeah,
does kind of have that the Ghost in the Shell ender of like, well, we don't want to blow up the whole world, so we got to kind of like reestablish your status quo.
Well, no, this is the problem with me can't remembering shit. I always forget something at the last moment. I'm like, shit! I have to go run off for it.
This is also probably why shopping episodes take a whole episode, because you're like doing them and then you're just like, oh wait, shit, I had 4 more things.
Yeah, but I think we've talked about enough about Rain. It's almost midnight for you, Jesus.
Yeah, we've been talking for about I want to say an hour 20, maybe an hour and a half. We got it. We good. There are a couple of game things we can mention. I got a couple of quick ones I can throw out there.
Do it.
So over the past week, like I said, I've been trying to rest my finger bones a little, get them out there, and so playing certain kind of games, some of which are a little more stressful than others. But one of the things I have been playing is I was given a beautiful, wonderful phone alert. Thank you, phone, for tempting me at all hours. But sometimes it gets a little screwy, but for the most part, the PlayStation app works to let me know when things on my PlayStation wishlist are on sale. So it told me, hey, Bayonetta's on sale, and I was like, for how much? And they're like, this much. It's like $6.49. And I knew already that I had over $5 of credit thanks to PlayStation Rewards points. So I cashed that in for $5 of store credit, and so I bought Bayonetta on it's the PS4 port, but on PlayStation for about $1.50.
$1.50.
So I've been playing that a little. It's a fun time. I mentioned this in our Discord briefly, but it's very funny to me to like play Bayonetta again after many, many years, because I haven't played it since the PS3, which was apparently the inferior port. The Xbox version was apparently better, but also did not sell as well somehow. It was supposedly the better that was the port where Platinum put more of their time on, so it was more polished. People played it way less on Xbox. It's so funny. I don't know why.
I can tell you why. It's because Xbox was the fucking FPS, was the FPS console where you put all your fucking shooter.
It's true. It was the 360 era, so I can see the audience not wanting this weird character action game by Platinum that featured, gasp of all things, a woman. I don't really want to call her a gremlin because Bayonetta's like 6 feet tall. She's built like a basketballer, but like I have forgotten just how much fucking smug Bayonetta packs in that first game. Like I don't know if they probably redid the textures a little, like they HD them up a little, but like the animators, like she's almost constantly got like a smug smirk or shit-eating grin on her face. Like she's having a great time at all times, not just when she's doing an innuendo, but also sometimes when she's doing a violence. But yeah, so it's been probably like a decade since I played this game. Now, I did play it super extensively back in the day, all the way to like nonstop infinite climax and shit. I never did like 100% of everything because one of the things I've realized is that the first Bayonetta is kind of a grindy game. Like, it's still in the phase that's a lot like some of the like action games from like the PS2 era, I would almost say, where like if this game was like fucking asking me for quarters, I wouldn't be surprised, right? Like,
yeah.
It's got the vibe of like, oh, no. You're going to play this game a lot. You're both going to continue like reset, but also you got to replay levels a lot because that's all we got. All we got are levels. And some of the levels are kind of short. Like they can be pretty in-depth and have some cool set pieces, but some of them play very rapidly because I assume of like space limitations back on the PS3, you know? I will say that because it's on my PS5, which has an SSD, even though I don't think it's installed there technically, but like the old school like loading screens where you practice fights, don't have time for that shit. Goes by fast.
That.
Luckily, you can still like practice in other ways, but it is definitely like some of the art is lost because the loadings. It was not designed for you to press X to leave a loading screen, right, or something, because there were going to be so many. They actually designed it so that it was not a thing that you would like linger on. But now that like the load times are not a problem, it's like I wish we could linger. I'd love to practice combos. But no, the game is like really grindy. So like there's shit I never got to on the PS3 version. Like I don't think I ever actually fought Father Rodin because he was like a bonus boss that you had to spend a shitload of halos, which are not that easy to come by in game. Like their shit is expensive. I think I'm like probably like almost halfway through, and because I'm about to fight the second big boss, the Windy Boy. I still haven't bought a single accessory because they're all like $100K. So like while I never did get to everything, I played the game a shitload. So like it's so funny to me of like I mentioned this on our Discord, like I said to say specifically, but I have like so much muscle memory about like weapons and stages and like being like, I think there's something here, or this is when this type guy shows up, or I see an angel and I'm like, oh yeah, this guy, he does these attacks. So like I remember all that shit because I played all of the levels like 1,000,000 times on every single difficulty, also grinding for halos. And like for the sake of like completion, I think I beat the game on like very easy and easy after beating it on normal, all that stuff. So like I remember the game beats very well, but then there are times when I'm like actually watching the cutscenes and I go to myself, wow, I really have not watched this cutscene since the very first time I played this game. I don't remember this at all. Because obviously like the cutscenes are skippable, but it's the kind of thing where like I really don't need to see the same slideshow of Bayonetta fucking with Luca, for the 50th time while I play this level again, So it's a very weird vibe, but we're getting in there. I would probably say, since we have talked about, probably at some point streaming, a DMC-averse, we might also call that streaming the Platiniverse, getting some Platinum games in there, because I know we wanted to add Metal Gear Rising to our eventually streaming all the Metal Gear titles we can. Okami is not actually a Platinum Games game, but Clover, like, the people left Clover turned into Platinum kind of a thing. So
it's close enough.
It's close, That's on our platter. So, like, I'm like, I should probably stream Bayonetta sometime, too, because, like, the original one, like I said, I played the shitload. I'm really in, like, I know what I'm doing. I'm still probably going to get my ass kicked if I do a fresh save right away because, like, I'm not going to have enough heals. And, like I said, the original Bayonetta is actually, like, I've heard people talk about 2 and 3 as being easier. The original Bayonetta, even on normal, is kind of difficult. Like, it's one of those games where, like, using a healing item penalizes your score at the end a little bit. And you can get, like, health drops from defeating enemies or smashing world objects, but they're very rare, and the chance only goes up when you're already in, like, critical HP. So, like, the game is like, fairly generous with continues. Like, if you continue, it checkpoints fairly regularly. Even between phases of boss fights, sometimes it'll checkpoint. And when you do a continue, you're back to full health. So that is generous. But if you take a continue, that is another, black mark at your score at the end of the level type shit. So definitely one of those things of like, yeah, no, you're going to get your ass beat a while because the game is actually like pretty out there. And I mean, obviously, if you do just want to play it Hideki Kami himself blogged about fucking automatic mode and easy and very easy, calling it mommy mode. His words, exactly, back in the day. There are archives of the blogs. So you, like, the game does have basically the autopilot, but it's still, I'm like, man, interested in being like, man, this game's like hard. And not just like timing shit, but like the actual like, no, you got to grind a lot of rings. You got to be you're not supposed to use healing items willy-nilly. You know, watch out for continues. Like I said, I still think my muscle memory kicked in pretty good because I was like doing my witch time dodges like basically immediately. I think I remember most of my fun combos. So like I said, probably at some point we'll throw it in the stream bin, but I gotta like play through it all and get a scope on what I'm looking at. Yeah. But like I said, it's a fun one to revisit, and I do still get that hit of satisfaction when I finish a phase, you know, a verse they call it, a little section, and it's like pure platinum. I'm like, oh yeah, still got it. And because the PS4 version, it has separate trophies, so we're gonna add a whole bunch of trophies to the system.
Woo.
I don't know if I want to commit to 100, like getting the platinum trophy and 100%ing it, because some of that requires like lots of grind. I could probably do it, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to say I'm gonna do it anytime this year. Because you probably have to get all the Umbran Tears of Blood, which means you have to do like every single. Because the game had a built-in trophy system, basically a built-in achievement system, which was the Umbran Tears. Some of which you get as collectibles in the world, but some of them you get them for just doing certain things. It was so weird back in the day before trophies were standardized, but Xbox was doing achievements about how like multi-platform games would like track that shit.
Yeah.
So it like some of that's still baked in, so that some of that requires you to do some crazy bullshit. Like Legendary was talking, like you gotta grind so many fucking Halos to get Rodon as the super boss. And then you gotta beat the super boss. And you have to pay the Halos every time. So like it's tough. But we'll see how much we do. And like I said, it's a fun time to revisit. The other thing that's cropped up that I have been playing a little today is Blueprints, which is obviously a play on word of blueprints. But it's a neat little like puzzle and kind of mystery game of building a house with some stuff in it. I think it was no, they streamed it today, so no, I haven't watched Save Data do it. I was playing and recording today. When they post the archive, I'll probably check it out. But it's a game that you and I both saw on one of the PlayStation showcases recently.
Yeah.
Because it was a rare game where they put it on PS Plus day and date. So it is technically like part of the PS Plus extra for this month, which they've already announced. But it's already out on PS Plus if you want to try it out at people at home, which is how I'm playing it. It's technically paused right now. But yeah, people are it's been getting very positive reviews. People are speaking very highly of it. I'm not like super deep into it, but it is fun. Basically, you get a really long-ass letter from your dead great-uncle who's leaving you his house and all his money, but only if you can find the 46th room in his mansion, which magically changes the rooms every day. You are also given extra rules at the start of the game. You can't bring any tools in from outside. Any tools you unlock inside the mansion have to stay in there. You are not allowed to stay overnight. And so basically it's you know, you got to solve the puzzle mansion for your inheritance type stuff. You get to open doors and can draft blueprints, so you put new rooms. Different rooms have different effects. They can have, like, colors. Some of them can have costs to use resources. The three primary resources I found are gems, which are kind of like special unlocks, coins, which are for trading and buying things, and keys, which unlock doors. Because sometimes, just through happenstance, doors to the next rooms will be locked. So you got to unlock them. You got to spend expendables, otherwise they become dead ends. And it resets every day. You've got so many steps. The default is 50, but you can do a lot of different things out there. And it does like kind of keep your memory. So it seems fun. There's a lot of cool like designs for rooms. There's a lot of stuff going on. I'm still very early in that phase of like honestly, this is probably more roguelike than many roguelikes in that like it's technically a dungeon crawler. It's just so far there's no horrible enemies trying to eat me. It's just every time you finish a day and you call it a day, they say, you know, the map resets. So, like, I'm still at the phase where I'm trying to, like, actually build a line all the way through because I feel like I keep getting halfway through the mansion and then I just get rooms that are all dead ends. But eventually, you know, you'll click the run. And there's a lot of interesting things. And like I said, people are praising it pretty highly. I got a pretty interesting cutscene when I fed a classic, like, fortune-telling machine, you know, crystal ball guy. I fed him a coin, and he was like, I see things. A boy on a beach, a red flag. And I'm just like, oh, this got really intense all of a sudden. Okay. So, like, there's some neato things in there as well. And like I said, the atmosphere is just good, and just kind of walking through a town. So, oh yeah, there are puzzle rooms. I haven't actually, I think, picked the billiards because the L shape hasn't lined up. But the one I see the most often is the parlor? I think it's the parlor. That's a great one. So to give an example of what this game is like, there's a 3-box puzzle. You have a single wind key to open a box, and it just tells you one of these boxes is true, one of them is false. And each of the boxes have facts on them, and there's stuff like the other 2 boxes are blue, the other 2 boxes are empty. Or actually, I think one of my favorite clues was one of them told me, like, one of these boxes would be true if it said this instead of every. So I correctly picked it. It was the box that said every box has gems in it. I was like, well, that's got to be the one that has gems in it because that's the only one that makes sense if you switched every with this. So like, it's just a cute little stuff like that. So yeah, they've got puzzles, they've got bonuses, they've got shit I don't even know how to use yet. There's like, you can get like a utility closet with like breakers to other rooms. To like turn them on. One of them I assume is like if you do that, that means that you don't have to worry about the dark room, which is like literally dark. You can't see what options you pick if you go through there kind of stuff. Other funny things. There are like different tools you can pick up in the game. Like you can get running shoes to get like a slight decrease on stamina, like a chance you'll use less stamina when running back because you use a point of stamina every time you enter a room. So even if you're backtracking, so you gotta be careful. But you also have fun stuff like if you get the regular bedroom, that gives you +2 stamina every time you enter it. So like you can technically get a little back if you like snake back through it. You can't like constantly keep doubling back because every step takes 1. So it's basically like a +0 if you keep going through it again and again. But if you double back through it, like a long run, you can get a little back, shit like that. But there's like Sledgehammer can break locks on like trunks that are in rooms that are locked. I've seen like a magnifying glass to read documents closer and lots of other weird little things. So it's fun. I'm enjoying kind of exploring it so far. So that's a good one. Check it out on PS Plus. Other games coming this month, including we like I don't know how we knew it would happen. Yeah, I've got the Observatory. I got a star buff. But this month, Hogwarts Legacy is being on PS Plus.
Yeah, I figured this was gonna happen eventually.
Yeah, I think we all knew that it would be a game that would like at some point outlive its lifespan. There's a couple others this month as well. Let me see what else they threw up there.
I don't remember. I do remember this month we had RoboCop, and I do want to play that. I heard it was very good.
Yeah, I added that to my library for Essentials. Let me see. I think this is the tweet that links to it. Yeah, that's the Essentials Monthly. That's already live. The extra level and the premium level coming up later is, let's see, Hogwarts Legacy is like their big one, but we've also got Blueprints as mentioned. There is second episode of that Lost Records game. If you like golf, EA Sports PGA Tour, Road to the Masters. Battlefield 1 for PS4 is coming. I think I already like bought that separately for like $1 as well. The PS4 and PS5 version of Plate Up, funnily enough.
I don't know if I can play without mods. I love Kitchen Designer too much.
Yeah, the mods are helpful. It's not like super critical, but it's fun. And also we've like unlocked a bunch of stuff. I don't know if I'd do it again, but it is a cute game, so you can get it for free on PlayStation. And for premium, they're adding Alone in the Dark 2 and War of the Monsters. Oh, and the header on PlayStation, blog.playstation.com is marathon themed because we're going to get the, well, technically it's after midnight. So today we're going to get the gameplay reveal. I am excited for that.
They have been hyping it up.
Yeah, they've been doing a big push. ARG. Some people are like, Shadow Drop this April. And I'm like, no, they're going to do closed alpha first or closed beta. But they're working at it and they're saying some good, fun stuff about it. So then I guess the only thing is, depending on how much we want to talk about it versus how much we want to do it, but kind of the sensation sweeping the nation.
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, I know you're in right now. But for the overall, the sensation sweeping the nation right now is Schedule 1, a simulator game about making and selling drugs.
It's a really weird drug, by the way.
Yeah, I think that's honestly why it's cottoned on is because there's I think 2 reasons. One, there's a kind of like movement element to it. You can run, you can jump on stuff, you can skateboard, you can drive vehicles.
Yeah.
You can even like parkour a little bit to like figure out how to get away from cops. That's always very fun. And you can do some very weird stuff with movement, like exploits, like making yourself accidentally jump super high on like a basketball. But the other thing is that like, yes, it is kind of serious, but also it's not. Like your drugs can have very funny effects when you mix them with stuff that are kind of like tangible, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I was actually looking at it. No, all the effects actually do something. It's just some of them don't matter for NPCs. Like, athletic actually makes you run a little bit faster if you smoke it. And oh god, let's see here. What was? I think slippery makes it so you actually have less friction on the ground, so your movement's a little bit more erratic.
Makes sense.
There was a list I saw, and unfortunately, I don't remember it all off the top of my head. But no, every effect a drug has I think. There's a fucking one called explosive where you explode and die, but it does damage to other people.
Yeah, we'll be careful with that one.
You gotta be careful about that one.
But yeah, no. So there's that. All that has like obvious, I think, like connotations and moments for like people. So like that makes it funny. You can name your own drugs or randomly generate so it has the kind of thing that like people cotton onto. But also I think it just has a really like nice gameplay loop of like make product, prep product, sell product.
No, that's good.
You can automate a lot of it with NPCs, but also you can do it up. It started out the gate with like 4-man co-op up to, I should say. So yeah, it's just a game we've been playing a lot, and we'll probably get back to more. I could describe like specific funny business of it, but honestly, you probably heard of it already, people at home, and if not, you can watch people, any number of people stream it or play it or whatever. See for yourself.
It is very fun, and there's a lot of things planned for it. I actually found the creators' to-do list.
And it's made by one guy.
Yep.
Yeah, so like the things that are still kind of loosey-goosey, they're planning to flesh out. Like recently, the pawn shop was added, so you can sell back certain things if you have an excess. And eventually there's going to be growing shrooms, I think is going to be the next big update. And, more funny stuff planned. I think there's a lot of room for, like, alternate maps or other stuff like that. Or expanding the existing map in new places.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's going to be fun. I do want to say, like, as a minor aside, there was a, like, not about the game directly, but it was caused by the game. There was a little micro-controversy, which people might have heard of. And I think it's an interesting case of thinking about how our state of, like, IP law is a little dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And people may have heard of this, but you've probably heard it reported incorrectly. So on Steam, there is also another game called Drug Dealer Simulator that is from like 2020. It was from that phase where we had Everything Simulator.
Yeah.
So there was a story going around that was reported, and some places reported as they were looking at a lawsuit at Schedule 1. This is not correct. What is up is that studio, which is a publicly traded company, launched a fairly standard investigation to see if there was a risk of IP infringement from this game that was made later but was way more successful. They wanted to see if there were like similarities in the like setup or technology or writing of the game, which I don't think there is. But strictly speaking, if you're publicly traded, because of stockholders, you may be held liable by your stockholders if something were to happen where your IP was infringed upon and you didn't do anything. The kicker from this came from, I believe that the original Drug Dealer Simulator company is Polish. So the fact that they were doing this investigation was, what's the right word? Was a matter of public record, I guess I should say. So like had to go on the public notice of like the stock exchange or whatever. So media outlets picked this up. And some of them reported it as they were seeking legal action. And I think the Drug Dealer Simulator did get, like, review bombed and may still be getting review bombed because a lot of people interpreted or it was reported to them that they were thinking of suing Schedule 1, a game which is very popular and making presumably lots of money right now. And their game is old and probably not making money. But they're not actually planning a lawsuit. It's just one of those cases, like I said, where, like, IP protection law is dumb. And it's kind of a case where, like, you're forced to take a proactive stance because if you didn't do anything, if it goes to court, then the judge says, well, you didn't do anything, so obviously you don't care. Which is not necessarily correct. But also, it's really annoying that they have to take this proactive stance because it means that lots of companies are like, what's the opposite of gun shy? Gun happy? Trigger happy?
Trigger happy.
Yes, trigger happy. They're real ready to pull the trigger on this shit. Like, Nintendo is very famously litigious about lots of fan content and stuff because they are very secure about their intellectual property, and lots of other companies have this issue. And it's a case of, like, I think this company, the Drug Dealer Simulator company, has a legitimate argument to be like, hey, the law, so part of this legal framework is bad because we were forced to do due diligence to prevent to make it so that our stockholders could not be legally upset at us. We've created a situation where our stockholders could possibly be legally upset at us because I'm sure that our stock price is not doing well while we're being review bombed, Yeah. And it's not really their fault. It's the structure of the system is stupid. I don't think it'll go anywhere, but it was definitely I saw a discussion and I'm like, man, there would be a real great time for people to be like, actually, we should fix this. The thing that is supposed to protect us has fucked us. But yes, actual Schedule 1, very cool game. Check it out on Steam now. I got some big updates. And in fact, once I hit the end recording button on this, which will be very soon, I'm gonna start editing the audio and see if I can get back in. Because currently, I'm a little glitched up in Lucky Save. I've done a fresh install. We'll see if that unfuckles it. And there's a couple of other strategies that people try. Like I said, it is one guy doing it, so there's occasionally bugs and problems in there. But we'll make it work. But yeah, I don't have anything else to say on this week's show. Anything else with you, Lucky?
No, nothing that needs to be said right now. Maybe next week.
All right. We'll see you next week then. Hey, if you're watching this video on YouTube, you've watched all, 4-ish hours of it. What's the edit going to be? 3.5 probably. 320, something like that. You watched all that shit? Like this video. If you want to join us in our conversations, jump on our Discord. You can leave a comment down below as well. You can ring the bell for notifications so you know when we're posting new videos or when we're streaming. We should be starting Sam and Max next Monday.
Yeah.
And also, if you do want to keep up on Rain, I posted it early, but it was kind of, in the middle of the afternoon, evening on a Friday. So notifications, they help. Make sure you're subbed, obviously, to get all our latest videos in your subscription feed. You can support us by joining our channel membership for access to membership badges and emotes. And you can support us on Patreon to get access to audio episodes and other stuff early. Like our beautiful, wonderful patrons, including but not limited to Adam DeHarp, Blacklist OG, Call Me Zed, Carlos, Dragon, JDV9000 for Starlight, Legendary Boss Hunter, Rise of Kenji, Rogue Grumman, Sharvor, and Varen the Crow. If you like what we do, consider supporting us on Patreon. But that's going to be this week's episode of Let's Talk FGO and more, and we'll be back at you next week, where hopefully, hopefully for my sake, my wrist and hand feel better, because I'm going to have to do the pregame no matter what, so hopefully I won't hurt my hands doing it.
Very important.
But yeah, that's it. Ciao, everybody.
Bye.